All have left lives and families behind, but they say it's a worthwhile sacrifice to build the Myanmar they were promised, and the threat from the junta's warplanes and artillery won't stop them trying. Thank you for listening to this episode of Assignment from the BBC World Service. I'm Quentin Somerville and my producer was Lyndall Markham.
That was Assignment from the BBC. I'm Saroja Coelho, and this is CBC Radio 1. Have a great day.
Good morning, everyone. I'm RC Marcusa. We're broadcasting live in downtown Winnipeg and all across Manitoba with our team here at Information Radio. Thanks for joining us on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or YouTube. Well, we're going to have a bit of a gray day out there. It's really warm to start, though. 15 degrees already in Winnipeg. Risk of a thunderstorm this afternoon and increasing winds. Really gusty winds happening later in the day, up to 70 km. So right now, though, we are looking at a calmer start. Winds are just northwest at 4 in the downtown, at least. A little breezy at the airport. And our high today, by the way, is 21. Corey Funk, good morning. Corey directs the program and will be covering the commute. Good morning, Abby Adeyemi. Abby is our technical producer and covers weather on air. And good morning to Brad Lilly, who's also in our Studio 15 control room this morning. Heather Wells is here also. It's 3 minutes to 6 a.m. She has your news headlines.
Good morning. Well, a chef who pleaded guilty to deliberately torching a hotel in an eastern Manitoba town has been sentenced to 2 years for arson. Court heard Pele Lambiase deliberately set the Rennie Hotel fire using lighter fluid and a barbecue lighter, seeking revenge on the new owners of that hotel. We'll hear more about that. And a new transitional housing facility just opened in Brandon to help keep Indigenous women safe. Danette Hanmore is the first woman to move into Chelsea's house. It is named after her relative, Chelsea Cote, who died in February and was unhoused at the time. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 6:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Well, speaking of being unhoused, what is that effect on your mental health? How does that affect you? That's our mental health column today, actually. We're going to start the show with that. That's right after 6. In addition, in the first hour of the program, Quebec gets an A, Manitoba gets a C. Spoiler alert. That's some of the results from a report card by Clean Energy Canada. We'll find out what's behind the grades and how they measure the province's success. Later in the program, we'll hear about a family-friendly festival happening in Winnipeg, celebrating Egyptian culture. So we'll hear all about that if you want to take part. And we've been already dipping into grad season as it is June this weekend. We're going to hear from a local tailor that's been busy making sure both young men and women can be suited up for grad this year. CBC's Jim Agapito visited Aldo Formal Wear in Winnipeg. How many years have they been outfitting folks for grad? So stay tuned. And then we have a follow-up on our Manitoba Teacher Society interview yesterday about violence against teachers in the classroom. So that's ahead as well.
Today on Q with Tom Power.
It just feels like destiny, and this is Destiny's child.
Alana Glazer's new movie, Babes, isn't just about someone finding out that they're pregnant and choosing to have the baby. It's about the friendships that change as you grow up and start to have kids. She'll be here to talk about the film, about Broad City, and getting comfortable with getting older. That's coming up on Q, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. They are known as the Hong Kong 47, pro-democracy activists charged under Beijing's strict national security law. Today, just 2 of them were acquitted by a Hong Kong court. The rest could face life in prison. Critics say this is another example of the government crushing civil liberties and creating a climate of fear. Freelance reporter Laura Westbrook was outside the court.
Under a heavy police presence, crowds lined up to witness the verdict in the biggest national security trial since Beijing imposed the legislation in the wake of the 2019 anti-government protests. Some, like former opposition lawmaker Emily Lau, had high hopes ahead of the ruling.
I hope that we can turn over a new leaf to go back to be a city where we have freedom of the press, freedom of assembly, freedom of demonstration.
Known as the Hong Kong 47, the group is made up of some of the city's most prominent pro-democracy figures, such as Joshua Wong. They were charged with conspiracy to commit subversion. 16 decided to fight the charges, but only 2 were acquitted, including Lawrence Lau, who walked free from court and thanked those outside. Prosecutors said the accused tried to gain a legislative majority, and their ultimate goal was to force the leader of Hong Kong at the time, Carrie Lam, to resign. The court ruled that the scheme would have created political instability in Hong Kong, leading to a constitutional crisis. Across the road from the court was a sole protester known here as Grandma Wong.
We still have hope. I'm sure I will not give up.
Those found guilty will be sentenced at a later date, and they face up to life in prison. Laura Westbrook for CBC News, Hong Kong.
The Israeli military now controls Gaza's entire land border. Spokesperson Daniel Hagari says it took control of the Philadelphia corridor yesterday. It includes a strategically important buffer zone between Gaza and Egypt.
Hamas ניצל את מרחב פילדלפי.
Hagari says Hamas was taking advantage of that area. He says the group used it to smuggle weapons into the Gaza Strip, and he says Israeli troops discovered roughly 20 tunnels there. Egypt's state-linked news channel says there is no truth to that report. It says an Egyptian government source says Israel is using these allegations to justify continuing its operation in Gaza. On Prince Edward Island, dozens of foreign workers are on a hunger strike. They're entering their 7th day with no food, and some of them have stopped drinking water. They're protesting recent immigration changes by the provincial government. As Steve Bruce tells us, they say those changes rob them of a chance at permanent residency.
I'm feeling dizzy sometimes. I fainted twice or thrice.
Jaspreet Singh Sivia says after a week without any food and a day now without water, he is worried about his health.
But we don't have any other choice. They have left us no other choice.
He's among a couple dozen foreign workers on PEI, many of them sales and service workers, on a hunger strike outside the provincial legislature. Most of them moved to Canada's smallest province with open work permits and hopes of getting nominated for permanent residency. But the provincial government is moving forward with plans to cut the number of sales and service workers that will get a nomination from more than 800 last year to just 200 this year. Premier Dennis King's government says it needs to slow population growth and to focus on attracting more healthcare, childcare, and construction workers.
Our hands are tied
So those on this hunger strike and others are now worried they'll have to leave Canada. Rupinder Pal Singh says that's unless government extends their work permits.
We want to be here. We want to stay here. This is the extreme we can take it to in order to prove that.
Yesterday, paramedics had to be called to help 2 of the people going without food and water, though the hunger strikers say they will keep it up until the PEI government supports them or health issues force them to stop. Steve Bruce, CBC News, Charlottetown.
Public health experts in India say they expect more people in hospital and deaths from the scorching heat. Delhi is in the midst of a heat wave. Another record for the hottest day was broken there yesterday. The mercury hit 52.9 degrees Celsius. At least 1 person died in the capital city. Amruta Norisarma is an environmental health expert.
What we anticipate is that as warming continues worldwide, but particularly in this region, these summertime periods of extreme heat waves will become more frequent and also more intense and also will be longer lasting.
Nori Sarma says prolonged periods of extreme heat are especially dangerous. It doesn't give the human body enough time to recuperate. Iran has opened a 5-day registration period for presidential hopefuls. Election day is scheduled for June 28th. Iranians need to choose a replacement for Ibrahim Raisi. The former president was killed in a helicopter crash earlier this month. Potential candidates must be between 40 and 75 years old and have at least a master's degree. They will ultimately need to be approved by a council that includes Iran's supreme leader. That panel has never accepted a woman or anyone calling for radical change in the country's governance. In a few hours from now, the jury in Donald Trump's hush money trial will begin a 2nd day of deliberations. There is no indication when to expect a verdict, but some observers say it could take days. The CBC's Chris Reyes has more.
The jury will be back in the courtroom this morning after more than 4 hours of deliberations on Wednesday. They requested the judge's instructions again and to rehear key testimony from the prosecution's star witness Michael Cohen and former publisher of the National Enquirer David Pecker, talking about that meeting at Trump Tower in 2015 when the trio allegedly conspired to aid Trump's presidential campaign by killing damaging stories about him. Ty Cobb is a former special counsel to Donald Trump.
I find that interesting that they're already sort of, debating who said what when. I think it shows that they're taking it seriously. They want to be right.
To reach a guilty verdict, the jury must unanimously find that Donald Trump falsified business records with intent to commit election fraud. The charges are in connection to hush money payments made to adult film star Stormy Daniels and two others leading up to the 2016 elections. Trump railed against the case soon after the judge delivered his instructions to the jury.
I would say, in listening to the charges from the judge, who's, as you know, very conflicted and corrupt, because of the confliction, very, very corrupt. Mother Teresa could not beat these charges. These charges are rigged.
The jury will deliberate until they come to a decision. They're currently not sequestered, which means they get to go home at the end of each day. Chris Reyes, CBC News, New York.
We have a correction and a geography lesson about Canada's deepest lake. On Saturday, we aired a story about Great Slave Lake's low water levels. The story said the Mackenzie River drains into Slave Lake. In fact, the Mackenzie carries water from the lake north to the Beaufort Sea. Canada Post is making its case to Ottawa for more help to stay competitive and adapt to the times. The Crown Corporation has been losing money for years, and it warns things could get worse if the government does not loosen requirements. Marina von Stackelberg has that story.
Alternative day delivery is not on the table.
Canada Post CEO Doug Ettinger told a House of Commons committee last night the company will not ask Ottawa to change its mandate of delivering daily mail.
At first glance, when you look at it, you say, well, why wouldn't it be reasonable to deliver 2 days a week or 3 days a week? The issue is our network is a collapsed network that carries parcels, direct mail, and letters together.
Ettinger says that means the routes have to be covered every day, so Canada Post can try to compete. Because as letter mail collapses, e-commerce is booming. But Canada Post is quickly losing that market share to private couriers who can employ low-paid gig workers who deliver on weekends, which Canada Post does not do because it would cost too much in overtime pay.
It is a fight. I'm not being dramatic by saying that. So our business model needs to be updated. It is done. Finished.
Canada Post wants Ottawa to be more flexible with how fast it must deliver mail so it can save on transport costs. And it wants to be able to raise stamp prices like the UK and US postal services do without going through a major federal regulatory process. Ettinger says Canada Post submitted its corporate plan last fall of how it planned to sustain itself for the next few years, but the government hasn't approved it. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Ottawa.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime at cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, everyone. I'm R.C. Marcusa, live in downtown Winnipeg on CBC. You're with 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or YouTube. So many ways to find us. Thanks for making us part of your day. Pretty mild out there this morning. We're expecting rain. Abby's in with the details momentarily. We have our mental health column on this morning. We're going to talk about how our housing situation affects our sense of belonging and well-being. So stay tuned for that discussion. Also, Quebec got an A. Alberta and Saskatchewan got a D. We're talking about a report card out by Clean Energy Canada. Manitoba, right up the middle, we got a C. Not great, not failing. Why? Stay tuned. We'll dig into that. Plus, a summit held in Ottawa was held in Ottawa yesterday. There were delegates from all across Canada. The topic: should the voting age be lowered to 16? If you want to weigh in, 788-3205. We'll hear more about what was discussed at that summit coming up later in the hour. To start the hour, let's go to headlines with Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, a Winnipeg mother whose 9-year-old daughter got a sexually explicit email from boys in her grade is not satisfied with how her school handled the situation, accusing administrators of downplaying and hiding what happened. We'll hear more about what happened coming up. And a witness in a Winnipeg criminal trial is suing a judge and the provincial government. They allege their name was published on the Manitoba Court of King's Bench website in a written decision despite a publication ban. The witness says they have since suffered multiple violent physical and verbal attacks and have had to flee the province. Those stories and more coming up at 6:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
Heather Wells in our news center through the morning. It is right now time to check in with Abby and Corey. Good morning, you guys.
Good morning.
Morning. It's warmer out there, Abby, but it's going to rain.
Yeah, it's warmer, but the breeze is actually picking up. I had to go check it out a few minutes ago, and it's picking up. Right now, it's clear. It's 15 degrees. The breeze picking up as mentioned. We're expecting increasing cloudiness this morning as the afternoon period comes, and then a few showers are likely to begin late this morning, wrapping up by this afternoon. There's also risk of thunderstorm in the forecast this afternoon as well, and it will be breezy with the winds coming from the south picking up this morning before shifting to a lighter breeze from the southwest later in the day. And today's high will be around 21 degrees. As we move into the evening period, it will start off mainly cloudy, also a chance of showers and a risk of thunderstorm also in the forecast there. And then the skies will begin to clear up by late this evening. Though it will be windy, but then the wind will calm down as the night progresses. But in a nutshell, we'll be seeing some breezy conditions today. We're expecting some showers beginning late this morning, and then that would end this afternoon, and a risk of thunderstorm, and we'll touch a high of 21.
All right, thanks, Abby.
You're welcome.
Corey Funk, how are you?
Doing well. Sunny. It's
How's the commute in?
Yeah, not too bad at all. Haven't heard anything on the roads on the commuter line. My bike ride in was pretty smooth this morning as well. But if you see something going on, if you're stuck in traffic and want to tell me about it, give me a call. That number 204-788-3093.
Well, we have been talking for months and years, in fact, about the challenge across this country to find a decent home, a home where someone feels safe and secure, a home that's affordable, a home where you want to be. Having a home matters in terms of material well-being, of course, but also it can connect to a deeper sense of wellness. That's the topic of our mental health column today with Mark Hennick, who's a columnist and author of So-Called Normal, a memoir of family, depression, and resilience.
Good morning.
So as you see it through your mental health columnist lens, how does where we live connect to how we think and feel?
Well, so one of the things that I enjoy most about doing these weekly columns is that within the frame of mental health and well-being, I can explore some common connections in a few uncommon or unconventional ways. Now, on the one hand, there's lots of intuitive connections between housing and mental health. Housing security promotes education, economic stability, physical health, and all of those are linked to better mental health. Stable housing can also reduce exposure to domestic violence, reduce food insecurity, it can reduce behavior problems in kids. And all of those are incredibly important outcomes. So let's dig a little bit deeper and try to understand what might be going on behind those outcomes. Now, part of my background is in child development, and there's a key concept in that field that was popularized by the British psychologist John Bowlby, and it's known as secure base behavior. It's a marker of attachment, and it emerges very early in childhood. It refers to the way that children use their caregivers, usually their parents, but not always, as a stable and reliable foundation from whom they can go out and explore the world, but to whom they can also return for safety and comfort. And you can actually see this dynamic in action when, for example, a little one clings to their parent's leg in a strange situation, but then they start to gradually move out and explore. And you can watch it happen, like on a tether. They'll either come back or they'll at least look back to reference their safe person, their secure base, for this reassurance of safety, make sure they're still there. This is how we all, throughout our lifespan, learn about our world around us. And it's how we widen our circle of security and familiarity and confidence.
How in your mind does that concept from developmental psychology connect to housing security?
Well, and this is maybe the unconventional connection, because this adaptive, evolutionarily ingrained behavior that first emerges when you're just a little baby, of developing a secure base from which you can come and go as you need, I think that's the very foundation of both the mental health benefits of having a place to reliably call home, and also potentially a source of the risks to our well-being and health when we're deprived of that fundamental right. I think that housing security really goes back to that basic childhood need for a secure base, which gives us stability and predictability from the stresses and threats of the world out there beyond our boundary. It allows us to explore our community beyond our home.
So you're linking the idea of secure housing with a sense of psychological well-being.
Exactly. And I spoke with an expert who's focused on this area for quite a while about the intersection of mental health and housing.
Hello, my name is Kate Mulligan. I am an assistant professor at the Dalla Lana School of Public Health of the University of Toronto, and I head up the Canadian Institute for Social Prescribing.
Kate is interested in housing as a social determinant of health.
Mental health doesn't just originate in our brains. It originates oftentimes in our social circumstances and our physical circumstances, in a complex interplay between ourselves, other people, our environments, and our access to power and resources.
Now, especially for people who are unhoused or underhoused, neglecting the mental health impacts of their situation, that can lead to some serious and expensive consequences.
It is less expensive typically to house people than to repeatedly treat them through the emergency room or create additional pressures on our healthcare system that is extremely strained right now. And that's not just for unhoused people, but for all of us who are turning to the healthcare system for what are essentially social needs.
So when people have access to a secure home base, it turns out that they're better able to use that as a springboard of sorts, from which they're then able to get other needs met. And all of that contributes to their mental health and well-being.
I want to sort of just get more of your sense of a word you continue to use, secure housing. So the quality of the stability is important in terms of supporting our mental health, obviously. That issue of security is critical.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to come back to that idea of a secure base as it relates to secure housing, because I think that can help us to understand how having this stable set point of a secure home can help us to be more engaged and connected community members, which then facilitates our mental health and well-being. It's about more than just having an address. I'll go back to Kate again to frame this.
One of the most significant things, and it sort of flips that Maslow's hierarchy of needs on its head, and that's the idea that first you need shelter, and then you need to address your material needs before you can start addressing your mental health and social needs. We're really finding that sometimes it's the other way around, that you need social connectedness and a sense of community before you're ready to take those steps to accessing some of the material needs.
So, since mental health is more than merely your brain in your head, it means that your individual mental health is in many ways a social issue too. Your nature flows from and interacts with your nurture, your environment, at least as much as it does the other way around. We need to belong in this world. Our body, our brain, our mind, it needs to be able to let down its guard from time to time. And it can only really do that in a place of safety and security and belonging. A home is a place where you feel like you belong.
Not having that feeling of safety, belonging, connection, home is really significant. We're starting to see this being recognized around the world. So the World Health Organization now has a major commission on loneliness and social isolation. And housing is very much wrapped up in that. It's that feeling of belonging, that feeling of mattering, that feeling that someone else cares for you, believes in you. And those are all components of what we would call self-determination, both collectively and individually, or politically and psychologically.
So the connection between our mental health and our housing is as much psychological as it is political.
Mark, thanks for this week.
Thank you.
That's our mental health columnist, Mark Hennick.
T-minus 10.
Commercialized space travel has arrived, and the world of marketing is setting its sights on the stars. Ads on rocket ships, ads on spacesuits.
Ignition, liftoff.
Some companies even want to put ads on the moon.
Houston, we have pizza.
Advertising in outer space on Under the Influence with Terry O'Reilly, Thursday morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
Well, spoiler alert, Manitoba got a C. It is report card season, but think tank Canada, Clean Energy Canada, has done a report of its own, and that's what I'm citing from. It graded individual Canadian provinces on their transition from fossil fuels to clean energy. And to find out more about other provinces' marks and also why we got a C in Manitoba, we're joined now by Joanna Curiosities, Director of Public Affairs with Clean Energy Canada. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
So overall, can you walk us through, how well Canadian provinces are doing when it comes to their energy transitions?
Absolutely. We found that provinces in general are not pulling their weight when it comes to helping their residents and businesses benefit from the energy transition. The average grade across the board was a C, but scores did range widely from coast to coast. Quebec receiving a top grade of an A, Alberta and Saskatchewan receiving the lowest grades of a D, and then other provinces falling somewhere in the middle of the pack.
So we got a C in Manitoba. Why did we do better than our other prairie provinces? If you could sort of remind us what you measure.
Absolutely. So we looked at measures that either help set up your industries for success in a clean energy future, whether it's prioritizing the right competitive advantages or filling out the right supply chains. And then we also looked at measures that help households in the province's jurisdiction adopt cost-saving clean energy technologies like EVs and heat pumps. So Manitoba is starting from a strong place with real leadership potential. You've already got a 97% not emitting electricity grid. The province just introduced a new EV rebate of up to $4,000 off of a new electric car. And the province also offers extensive support for Manitobans wanting to retrofit their homes, including for heat pumps. What needs to happen now is some more future planning, especially to make sure that Manitoba continues to be able to take advantage of its clean electricity grid.
We've long been pressing the new government, actually. In recent months, I should say, we've been pressing the new government for details on the green energy plan. And the last conversation I had with the Premier here was later this year is when we will hear some more details of that. Why did Quebec get an A?
Quebec was the only province in the country that got a top grade, and it's because it was the Canadian leader in almost every category that we looked at. So first, Quebec has best-in-class EV policies, the most generous and longest-running EV rebate available to its residents. It's got one of the best public charging networks in North America, and it also offers incentives for its residents to adopt heat pumps. On the electricity side, Quebec also has one of the cleanest grids in the country, and it's investing heavily to make sure that that electricity stays cheap, clean, and abundant as an increasing number of households and industries are going to be plugging into it. Last, Quebec is really being proactive about building the industries and the supply chains of the future. It's been landing a ton of EV and battery-related investments that my home province of Ontario arguably should have been winning, and it's building those out proactively, getting ready for the future.
Since the last time you did this kind of a report, and if you could tell us when that was, what has changed in the energy transition big picture?
The last report that we put out was in the fall, and it looked at the household affordability benefits of adopting a few clean energy solutions like driving an EV or installing a heat pump. And what that found is a typical Canadian household could save $800 per month on its energy bills by making those few small switches. That translates into $10,000 over the course of a year that you could spend on anything else. Probably most Canadians would want to spend it on groceries. What has changed is that the global energy transition just continues to move forward, especially after Biden is investing trillions of dollars into building out its key clean industrial supply chains and helping its residents adopt electric vehicles. We are just finding that, we need to be relying on Canadian provinces to ensure that Canada is able to keep up.
Thank you for telling us about the report card. Appreciate your time.
Thanks so much for having me.
Joanna Kiriaziz is Director of Public Affairs with think tank Clean Energy Canada. We reached her in Ottawa this morning. You can go to their website if you want to read the full report. 626 on Information Radio.
It's just the way that you pull me closer, babe. Keep me looking over my shoulder every time. Don't go leaving, I know you wanna stay. 'Cause a woman like you is so damn hard to find. So baby, love me, fool me, hot and cool me. I can't get you off of my mind. I'm addicted to the sound of your heels on the ground. Don't act like you don't know what you do. So baby, when you walk away, flip your hair in my face. Can't help that I'm obsessed with you, and I can't get enough. No, I can't get enough. I'll take you anywhere you wanna go. Grab your coat, I got the keys, just pick the place. Put your phone down, let's get physical. Girl, you know that we could play these games all day. So baby, love me, fool me, hot and cold me. I can't get you off of my mind. I'm addicted to the sound of your heels on the ground. Don't act like you don't know what you do. So baby, when you walk away, flip your hair in my face. Can't help that I'm obsessed with you, and I can't get enough. Hit me with that attitude. Ooh, can't get enough of you. Your love could take me to the moon. Take me to the moon. Hit me with that attitude. Ooh, can't get enough of you. Your love could take me to the moon. Oh, baby. I'm addicted to the sound of your heels on the ground. Don't act like you don't know what you do. So baby, when you walk away, flip your hair in my face. Can't help that I'm obsessed with you, and I can't get enough. No, I can't get enough. I can't get enough.
Waking you up on a gray Thursday morning. It's going to rain in Winnipeg a little bit later today. That, by the way, Sean Desmond, his tune called Heels on the Ground. So if your heels are on the ground and you're walking to work, hopefully you packed an umbrella. You won't need it until later on, but we are expecting a few showers to begin late this morning, ending this afternoon. Risk of a thunderstorm, very windy. So winds are going to be gusting up to 70 at some points this morning. Our high in Winnipeg, 21. In the commute this morning, if you do need us, 788-3093 is where you can reach us. And then I want to tell you about business news. Christelle Brown-McCann's is going to join us after our local news at 6:30 here, as she does always. And today, it's not Christelle. Today it's Phil Demont who's going to join us with the business report. But today, Phil's going to be talking about a big Winnipeg company that is fighting a takeover bid. So stay tuned. Leading Phil's business news report is a story that obviously features locally here. So stay tuned. That's right after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it is partly cloudy, breezy already, and it's 15 degrees. We'll have a high of 21, but as Marcy mentioned, we're expecting showers beginning late this morning, ending this afternoon with a risk of a thunderstorm. And yes, it will be windy with at times gusts from the south to 70 kilometers an hour before the wind eases off this afternoon. A Winnipeg mother whose 9-year-old daughter got a sexually explicit email from boys in her grade accuses the school of downplaying, hiding, and mishandling the situation. CBC is not naming the daughter, the mother, or the school to protect the child's identity. CBC's Rosanna Hempel reports.
It was back in March. A Winnipeg mother says she found out her 9-year-old daughter had recently gotten a sexually explicit email from 2 boys in grade 4. The mother says the principal gave her the impression everything was all right. It was only through follow-up conversations the mother was told the email was about more than the boys wanting to kiss her daughter. It included comments about specific private body parts. The mother says the principal also told her the boys had apologized to her daughter in a meeting at school.
I said, hold on a minute. You made my daughter go into a room with boys that had sexually harassed her? What are you doing?
The mother says she's been pushing the Seven Oaks School Division for accountability and change since it happened. She wants the division to develop a sexual harassment policy so that cases are handled better in the future. The division declined CBC's request for an interview. In a statement, the division superintendent says staff work to build respectful and safe classrooms in schools. Rosanna Hempel, CBC News, Winnipeg.
And you can hear more on this story, more details coming right here on Information Radio after 8 o'clock this morning. A witness in a Winnipeg criminal trial is suing a judge and the provincial government. They allege their name was published on the Manitoba Court of King's Bench website in a written decision by Justice Kenneth Champagne, despite a publication ban. The witness says they have since suffered multiple violent, physical, and verbal attacks and have had to flee the province. They say their ability to live a normal life was destroyed, and they still suffer from ongoing threats. They are seeking general damages as well as special damages to be determined in court. The allegations have not been proven in court. A provincial spokesperson declined to comment. A chef who pleaded guilty to deliberately torching a hotel in an eastern Manitoba town has been sentenced to 2 years for arson. As CBC's Josh Crabb reports, he was seeking revenge on the new owners of the Rennie Hotel.
Court heard 65-year-old Pele Lambiase was caught on camera walking into the Rennie Hotel in December 2022 in the early morning hours with a satchel carrying lighter fluid and a barbecue lighter. He then lit a fire in the attached postal outlet that spread quickly to the hotel. No one was inside, but the 80-year-old community hub and gathering spot was destroyed. Lambiase previously pleaded guilty and confessed 3 months after the fire, only after police showed him the surveillance video. Court heard he didn't remember setting the fire because he says he was intoxicated by a mix of alcohol and opiates. Provincial Court Judge Cynthia Devine sentenced Lambiase to 2 years. The judge told court the motivation for the arson was revenge. Court heard he was angry at the new owners of the hotel for an argument and physical altercation between them and his friend who owned the neighboring restaurant in Rennie where he worked as a chef. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A first-of-its-kind safe house for women has opened in Brandon. It's called Chelsea's House in honor of Chelsea Cote, who died in February after experiencing years of homelessness. The transitional housing facility was created to help keep Indigenous women safe. It's run by Housing First and Action Research on Chronic Homelessness Brandon. Research lead Megan McKenzie says the 7-bed home will help prevent deaths.
A number of Indigenous women in Brandon that are homeless is just staggering. The needs and the risk factors are increasing more and more. So the idea for behind this house is we know that these women are at risk. We know that if they don't get the support and the help that they need, that they could be the next murdered and missing Indigenous women.
McKenzie says more than 100 unhoused Brandon women have been interviewed since November, and a common complaint is finding a safe place to stay. Manitoba dog owners might have a harder time taking their furry friends across the border this summer. Among new rules kicking in August is providing a form certifying rabies vaccination signed by a vet within 30 days of travel time. Local vet Philip Schott says owners should be prepared.
People need to find the websites, the CDC website and CFIA website, and just keep themselves up to date on what actually they need to do and what their responsibility and obligations as pet owners are if they're going to travel with their dogs to the U.S.
Only dogs older than 6 months are allowed to go to the U.S. under these new rules, and they must have microchips. Well, in Stanley Cup playoff action, the Edmonton Oilers beat the Dallas Stars last night in Game 4 of the Western Conference Finals.
Friday night, Game 5 in Dallas. Series tied. Best of 3 now in the Western Conference Final.
Yeah, the final score last night was 5-2. The series now tied, as you heard, at 2 games apiece. You can find more news updated throughout the day. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Do you know what? My husband would say this is one of my creepy habits.
Creepy habits.
Heather Wells. But sometimes when you're out and about, like if you're walking the dog, or you're just walking, or you're driving through the neighborhood somewhere, and it's dark, and then you can see what people are watching. Through the window.
You peer through their window?
Well, I'm not peering, but I just take notice, and so I always know when like it's a hockey night because you could see it like in multiple televisions, people tuning into the game, and that was the case last night. Except this was me through my front window last night, noticing people.
You are so funny.
John Paul's always like, stop it. You're
just doing a survey.
Person. I know. Anyway, so hopefully no one will report me. 6:36 a.m. is the time. Let's get into the regional forecast with Abby Adiyemi.
Good morning once again. It's currently 15 degrees in the city. Already feeling the breeze in town. Today we should be expecting increasing cloudiness with showers rolling in late this morning and sticking around until the afternoon period. And we have a slight chance of a thunderstorm in the forecast this morning. The winds will be picking up from the south, then shifting to the south west, and we will see a high of 21 in Winnipeg today. Tonight, the skies will remain cloudy with a chance of showers also into the night period, and then it's going to gradually clear as we get late into the evening. Heading west to Brandon, it is also 15 degrees and mostly cloudy. Throughout the day, it will stay cloudy with a few showers expected this morning. Then it's going to be clearing up in the afternoon. You should also watch out for possible thunderstorms this morning and early afternoon, and the winds will be coming from the southeast and shifting to the southwest. For folks in Brandon, you will be seeing a high of 21, just like in Winnipeg here. As we move north to Thompson, it is 12 degrees and partly cloudy. We're anticipating mainly sunny skies with increasing cloudiness sometime in the afternoon and a chance of showers later in the day. The winds will pick up from the south, and for folks in Thompson, you'll be seeing a high of 24. Further north in Churchill, it is 9 degrees and cloudy. The forecast includes mainly cloudy skies with clearing this afternoon. Winds from the southeast, high of 18. Dauphin is at 18 and cloudy. Today expect showers with a risk of thunderstorm, and you'll be getting to a high of 19. And Gimli, it's currently sunny at that part of the province. We are at 14 degrees. The Interlake region, we are looking at increasing cloudiness sometimes later in the day and a few showers this morning and a risk of thunderstorm in the afternoon, and we'll be seeing a high of 21.
All right, thanks, Abby.
You're welcome.
The commute, Corey.
Yeah, much more smooth than yesterday. If you'll remember, Marcy, yesterday there was a lot of actually delays going on for folks, and that was actually because the city says there was a loss of coordination in the internal clock of certain intersections, quote unquote. But now, last night they did post that has now been cleared. So if you are wondering, you're hitting the road this morning, is that still a problem? Should not be a problem anymore, says the city. So should be a lot more smooth sailing than it was yesterday. Other than that, if you see something else going on out there, if you're walking, biking, driving, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093.
Let's take 30 seconds, Corey, to talk about where we're going to be a week from today. I just like to mention it leading up. So if you want to make a date to be tuning in, certainly. But if you have a story to pitch to us about this neighborhood, or if you want to join us on site, we're going to be in location.
Yeah, we're going to be heading to Norquay School, an elementary school right in Point Douglas, right in the heart of Point Douglas. I actually went there last week to chat with the principals, met some students, and it's going to be a great time. The students are really stoked to take part as well.
So that's our community studio, Norquay School, a week from today.
It'll be fun.
The reason is the Point Douglas is going to be, right now they're developing a neighborhood plan for the city's oldest neighborhood. And so it's going to be very interesting. So there's a lot of things going on there. There's opportunities maybe with housing. This is always a neighborhood that's been split by a bridge, North and South Point Douglas. Always had challenge with that. There's also a lot of big industrial area right adjacent, but there's opportunity. I mean, there's a transit has plans to be moving through there in the neighborhood. And then this week, just an announcement about a park too.
Of course, yeah. I mean, there's Gary Dewar as well, former premier, as well as a lot of other people are proposing a national urban park centered around Point Douglas, as well as along a lot of our rivers here in the city as well. So a lot of changes could be coming to an area which hasn't seen a lot of change for a long time.
Agreed.
So, yeah.
So if you want to read just the story on the park, by the way, our colleague Darren Bernhardt has a piece up online this morning at cbc.ca/Manitoba about that proposal. But if you want to join us in Point Douglas next week, reach out, email the show, tell us what stories you think we should be sharing from that neighborhood, if it's yours especially. You can always reach us at radio893@cbc.ca. And thanks to Norquay, looking forward to being on location at the school. Right now, let's go to business news. Phil DeMont is in for Krista Lee this morning. Hello there.
I was listening to your discussion about the Oilers. I ordered drapes for my living room as we were speaking.
Is that true?
No. Oh. I already got them up there. But, when you said kind of, it sounded creepy, I was like, of course it sounded creepy.
I'm like, you're in another city. What are you talking about?
I know.
I'm with you. Sorry, that's so 2 minutes ago. My brain's not even there. My brain is on your lead story because it has to do with Winnipeg, Phil. There's a big company fighting off a takeover bid here. What's happening at AGI?
Yeah, AGI, Ag Growth International, is a big retailer of farm equipment based in Winnipeg, said no to a takeover offer this week from a competitor. The company making the offer hasn't been named. It was in a bunch of stories, but the value of the offer, 35% above the stock price. Now, you got to kind of look at it. So that means if you look at the current stock price, that bid would be $69 a share. But when this story broke, the stock price popped. So it kind of looks like more of the bid would be around $26 a share. And that's a bit of a problem if you're trading at 51. That being said, AGI, about $1.5 billion of sales last year, but its market value, that's the stock price times the outstanding shares, under $900 million. And it's down about 25% before the jump, in recent weeks because it had weak quarterly earnings. So now investors, they're worried that the farm equipment market goes through cycles and they might be hitting one as crop prices come down a bit and farmers need less gear. AGI, though, or AG, is in a bit of a difficult spot to ward off a suitor. It's publicly traded, so you can buy the shares, but it's a mid-sized kind of seller of farm equipment. But to be more competitive in its main markets, which are generally Asia, Europe, and South America, you might require more size. So you got this situation where AGI either takes somebody over, which they could do if they get money, or they get taken over themselves. The fact that they said no to the unsolicited bid doesn't mean no forever. Basically, their thinking is this: if one company thinks AGI is good enough to buy, somebody else might be in the weeds, so you wait for them to come forward and start a bidding war. So right now, it's not in play, but as soon as they say no, often companies get in play.
Let's go to another story. Phil, a new report says that Canadians might be getting the message regarding higher interest rates. In what way?
Yeah, Canadians borrowed more to buy homes in 2024, the first part, but the growth rate, slowest in 23 years. That's according to new numbers from Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation. CMHC says Canada's total residential mortgage debt market, slightly more than $2 trillion as of February. You go back to last February, it's up 3.5%. So that reflects the fact that a number of Canadians had to renew their mortgages in the past 12 months, but at higher interest rates. But those same higher interest rates have also slowed the pace of home price increases. The average house price in Canada in April, that price fell 2% versus April 2023. CMHC says, though, this slowdown in debt pileup, if you look at it that way, might be short-lived. That's because as interest rates fall, and they're expected to come down this year sometime, demand should rise for homes, and that could push up prices again. Contributing factor, though, Marcy, and this is interesting, a lot of people renewing their mortgages are doing it on shorter terms, less than 5 years. Normally, you get a 5-year term. But they're guessing that interest rates will come down, let's say September, October, and they can renew at a cheaper rate. That makes sense, except CMHC says, look, lenders are offering discounts for people to lock in at 5 years. So if home prices start rising towards the end of the year, then those mortgage sales might disappear. So you might not be any better off if you're waiting.
And before we look at the numbers this morning, why are orange juice prices so high?
Yeah, you can blame Brazil, specifically high temperatures in that country. Usually we talk about Florida driving OJ prices. It turns out Brazil, by far more important, affecting that commodity on Wednesday. The future price for frozen orange juice is what you trade, $4.77 US. That was double where it was a year ago, and it's a record. Drought's a big problem because big heat in Brazil, September to November of last year, hurt the crop. They're going to produce 25% fewer oranges this year, and they produce 10 times as many oranges as they do in Florida. Disease also. Greening is a disease that turns citrus fruit bitter, and there's no known cure. It's one reason why Florida's citrus crop was 300 million boxes in 2003. It's now 20 million boxes, and experts say don't expect any price relief soon because they think orange juice prices will rise maybe another 10% in the next few months.
And what are the markets telling us this morning, Phil?
Right now, they're up slightly in Europe. Germany, France, the UK, all up, but only marginally. So the Asian markets fell because they've got tomorrow. They got a big data day out in China and in Japan. So people are a little pessimistic. Hong Kong, Nikkei in Japan off about 1.5%. Oil down 3 cents, $79.20 a barrel. Canadian dollar, it's down, but only slightly, 72.94 cents US.
All right, take care.
Thanks, Mars.
That's Phil DeMont from our business desk. Well, speaking of taking care, we have a tune up next on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on Information Radio here on CBC from I Am the Living, who hopes that the new song encourages people to talk more openly about difficult things that you might be going through. It is called Let's Talk About It.
I've been thinking about all the pain that I see in your eyes. Watching and wishing that I can take it all from you and make it mine. You've been hiding all this time. You've been covering up your scars. Yeah. You've been fighting, but I can see that it's been ripping you apart. Why don't you just tell me how? Why don't you just tell me how you feel? You go too far to turn around. Open your heart and let's talk about it. I know it's hard to break it down, but let down your guard so we can talk about it. I'm wide open. I'm that open book where you can share your truth. Yeah. I'm just hoping you'll let me carry you through. Yeah. I think it's time you tell me how. I think it's time you tell me how you feel. I'm just here to help you out. I don't wanna let you down. You go too far to turn around. Open your heart and let's talk about it. I know it's hard to break it. I know it's hard. So we can talk about it. You go too far to turn around. You go too far. Open your heart and let's talk about it. Turn around. I know it's hard to break it. I know it's hard. So we can talk about it. Turn around. You can't make it all by yourself. You can't make it all by yourself. No. We can all use a little help, 'cause everybody goes through hell. You can't make it all by yourself. You can't make it all by yourself. No. We can all use a little help, 'cause everybody goes through hell.
Out of Vancouver, that's I'm the Living with Let's Talk About It on CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or on YouTube. Morning, everyone. It is 10 to 7 right now on 89.3. Thanks for being with us. It is 15 degrees in Winnipeg, also in Brandon, and we're getting peaks of sunshine, but then mostly cloud across the cities this morning. And up in Thompson, also mostly cloudy and 12 degrees. So for Winnipeg today, a few showers late this morning, ending this afternoon. Risk of a thunderstorm, though, in the afternoon. Really windy later, gusting to 70 out of the south. Today's high is going to be 21 degrees. Well, yesterday, advocates for lowering the voting age gathered in Ottawa. They want to see voting rights extended to people as young as 16 years old. This is the case in some countries already, but it's yet to get traction in Canada. Joining us to talk about it, Keegan Noonan-Boyd. He's the co-chair of Vote 16 Canada's Yukon campaign. He was also at yesterday's summit. Good morning.
Good morning.
Why do you think, Keegan, people should have the right to vote at 16?
I think that there's a few reasons. The first one that I've been discussing throughout the morning is at 16, youth are well prepared in a cognitive sense to make well-informed long-term decisions. Their ability to look at facts, consider the information, and make a good choice is awesome. And in fact, it doesn't fall short of 18-year-olds or even 20-year-olds. This means that when they vote, they are voting well. And today, they're more interested and more invested in the political space than ever before. With that ability to vote, we see great results. They turn into lifelong voters, voting at higher rates when starting earlier, and they present more educated votes and more personally connected votes by voting younger before moving away to home, for example, to university.
Why is it needed? Why not keep it at 18? Why not give 2 more years of life experience, so to speak, to inform a decision like that?
We talk about the life experience thing, and the reality is when people over the age of 18 go to the poll, there's no life experience box. People age 18 and people age 35, for example, have vastly different life experience. Even 2 18-year-olds would have different life experiences. The reality is that isn't a factor in a democratic process. We don't need to have more life experience. And in fact, 16-year-olds today, in many cases, have more awareness and more information available to them than people who would have been far older when we look at the past. Any information they want, it's available. And they're more invested than ever before in causes that matter to them.
Tell us about jurisdictions where the voting age is already 16.
So we have a few jurisdictions across the world. In fact, over 10. Some of the greatest include Brazil. We had an expert from Brazil join us last night. They lowered their voting age to 16 and saw amazing results. They went from 11% voter turnout for people aged 18 to, I believe, 24 or 30, all the way up to in the 70%. That is a 7-fold increase from lowering the voting age and increasing the awareness. Looking across the pond towards Europe, we had people join us from the United Kingdom, experts from Scotland and Wales, where there have been current and previous changes, and the voting age has been lowered to 16 in some regions. Further into Europe, in Austria and now Germany, the voting age has also been adjusted. Another example of more
of change coming. Yeah. Sorry to interject on you. I'm going to bring us back to Canada here now. Lots of examples, obviously. Yesterday, you're alluding to, obviously, the push to try to get this happening here in Canada, Keegan. Advocates, as you're alluding to, not just from here, but from other countries, all came together. What kind of political support is there yet in our country to have this change happen, the voting age lowered to 16?
There is great multi-partisan support at the national level. We were joined by Liberal, NDP, Green, and Bloc Québécois members of Parliament who provided speeches and have shown support from all 4 of those sides at the summit and in bills in the House. We also had members of the Senate turn up in great numbers and share their support and their excitement for the upcoming Senate bill on the issue.
How old are you, Keegan?
I am 18.
Yeah, and why do you, personally, I'm wondering why you believe in this fight?
So personally, I became involved when I was 16. Obviously, some time has passed now. And when I got involved, I had been involved in most generally the environmental space. I had been organizing protests and involved in other environmental demonstrations.
Mm-hmm.
What I began to realize is when youth do not have representation, any action that they show is a bit of a token gesture. Because the reality is, while they can stir up something in front of a government building, they can bring their signs, they can bring their chants. If the people sitting inside that building don't need their vote, they don't need to follow their desires. They don't need to follow their political wills.
Appreciate having you on this morning. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much. It was great to speak with you.
It's a big discussion. We're going to throw the listener lines open. Keegan Noonan-Boyd, co-chair of Vote 16 Canada, Yukon campaign, joining us from Ottawa this morning. So what do you think? Should we do this in Canada? Is there a cause to do this, or would you push against it? And of course, we always like to ask you to elaborate on whatever your opinion is going to be. Why? Why do you think that this should be a good move in Canada, lowering the age to 16 to vote? Or why not? What would your concerns be about it? We will take calls and we'll get them on the air through the program if you call us. 204-788-3205. That's the listener line. 204-788-3205. Well, on the morning commute, just as we wait to hook up with Heather here for headlines, it's been pretty quiet, actually. Pretty good out there. So call us if you do see any problems. 788-3093. Different number than the listener line. 788-3093. And now at 3 minutes to 7, Heather is with us with the news of the day.
Good morning. Well, a chef who pleaded guilty to deliberately torching a hotel in an eastern Manitoba town has been sentenced to 2 years for arson. Court heard 65-year-old Peli Lambiase was angry at the new owners of the Rene Hotel for an argument and physical altercation with his friend who owned the neighboring restaurant where he worked as a chef. We'll hear more about what happened there. And a new transitional housing facility just opened in Brandon to help keep Indigenous women safe. Danette Hanmore is the first woman to move into Chelsea's house. It's named after her relative, Chelsea Cote, who died in February and was unhoused at the time. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 7:30.
Thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
Weather-wise, as we've been sharing, 15, cloudy, going to be really windy later and a chance of rain. Well, in the next hour of Information Radio, coming up after 7 o'clock, a local tailor has been busy making sure both young men and women can be suited up for grad season this year. CBC's Jim Agapito visited Aldo's Formal Wear in Winnipeg. They've been around for so many years. Can you imagine how many grads they've outfitted at Aldo? Well, we'll hear. We don't have to imagine. We'll also hear about the latest styles and how in this day and age of people, following everything online, people are upping their grad style. So stay tuned. That's at 7:40 and a bit of a feature. Also, food, pharaohs, and family fun. We're going to hear from a local church that's preparing to welcome visitors for a very special cultural event celebrating Egyptian culture in our communities. So we'll hear from one of the organizers. Stay tuned for that. And then at 10 to 8 this morning, follow up on a conversation that you may have heard yesterday on the show here on CBC. The Manitoba Teachers Society was on with us. They said their teachers have noticed an uptick in violence in the classroom. So why are kids and teens acting more violently? A child and youth mental health specialist will weigh in, and that is coming up in the next hour of the show. Right now, though, World Report.
On the Current.
Since its inception, denim's never gone out of style.
Jeans are having a wild moment, from pants that look like you had an accident in the bathroom to tiny shorts called jundies. What denim trends tell us about our relationship to work, class, and the search for cool coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young.
The battles in Rafah are intensifying. The city in southern Gaza has become home for hundreds of thousands of displaced people. And this morning, there are reports of persistent artillery shelling and gunfire. The Israeli military says it has now seized Gaza's entire border with Egypt. Julia Wong is in London, watching developments.
As Israel steps up its offensive into Rafah, its military is now in control of the Philadelphia Corridor, a 14-kilometer buffer zone between Rafah and Egypt. The Philadelphia Corridor served as Hamas's pipeline through which Hamas engaged in smuggling in the Gaza Strip on a regular basis, says Israel Army spokesperson Admiral Daniel Hagari. He says tunnels were discovered in the zone, but Egyptian media are citing government sources who deny the claim and who say Israel is using that as an excuse to justify its Rafah offensive. The seizure of the Philadelphia Corridor is substantial. Israel now controls the entire land border of the Gaza Strip. But capturing the corridor could complicate Israel's relationship with Egypt. Its president is urging the international community to make sure Palestinians get long-term humanitarian aid and are not forcibly displaced. I call on all relevant parties in the international community to fulfill their moral and legal responsibility to stop the brutal Israeli war, says Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. In Rafah, young people play a game of volleyball in a tent camp, an attempt at normalcy. We are playing among the tents, says Ahmed Rahim, and we do not know whether this place is safe or not because the Israeli tanks are not far from here, but there's nowhere else we can play. It's a reality that could persist for some time. The Israeli government says it's likely the war will continue at least through the end of the year. Julia Wong, CBC News, London.
A Hong Kong court has convicted 14 pro-democracy activists of sedition. This is the largest use yet of the national security law imposed by China, and critics like Emily Lau say it's bad for civil liberties.
Because right now, there's not much press freedom, not much freedom of expression, and no freedom of assembly, and no freedom of demonstration. People are very frightened. Hong Kong was not like that a few years ago. So we have to go back to those days.
The 14 people convicted today are part of a bigger group known as the Hong Kong 47. In 2021, they were charged with trying to overthrow the government. Just 2 of them have been acquitted. That means 45 people could now be sentenced to life in prison for their role in pro-democracy protests. Later this morning, the jury in Donald Trump's hush money trial will begin their second day of deliberations. Jurors have asked to rehear testimony from tabloid publisher David Pecker, as well as Trump's former lawyer and fixer Michael Cohen. The jury also requested to revisit at least part of the judge's instructions. There's no indication when the jury will reach its verdict. Some observers say it could take several days. Ontario doctors are warning there will be more unplanned emergency room closures this summer. And they say rural and northern hospitals are particularly vulnerable. Covering doctors' and nurses' vacation time is expensive. And as Amanda Pfeffer tells us, hospitals are paying for it with budgets that did not rise with the cost of inflation.
We need our ER.
A video on social media from the Ontario grassroots group called Ghost Gurney.
My son went to another hospital because our ER was closed.
For the last 2 years, the group has been calling attention to hospital closures, capturing stories from the patients who depend on them.
He was there for 6 hours and had to leave because he had to get back home.
For sure, we will have continued closures.
Emergency physician Alan Drummond says prior to 2022, Ontario hadn't had an ER closure for more than a dozen years. He's with the association representing Canadian emergency physicians.
And now they are routine, and they are totally unnecessary, and they are unacceptable.
The CEO of the North Shore Health Network is Tim Vine, and he says 50 to 60% of hospital shifts are backfilled by temporary physicians called locums.
And I think that we will see intermittent closures likely across the province just because we don't have enough physicians.
The Ontario government renewed funding this spring to help rural and northern hospitals hire locums. But the money expires in September, not long enough to hire long-term. The bigger problem may be nurses. Vine says he's spending almost $1 million on high-priced nurses recruited through private agencies just to keep the doors open. It's a lot, particularly since this year, the money hospitals receive from the province didn't increase enough to cover the cost of inflation. Amanda Pfeffer, CBC News, Ottawa.
Airports across the country could soon tap into additional investors. Ottawa is considering allowing investment opportunities to some groups like pension funds. But as business reporter Kyle Bax tells us, many airlines want even more changes from the federal government.
We need to look at having more tools in the toolbox.
When airports look to raise money to expand, they could soon find a new partner, such as pension or sovereign wealth funds. The federal government is exploring the policy change. Monette Pashers with the Canadian Airport Council.
What we do need to see is just more financial flexibility and more investment in our airports.
It's progress, but some want more, including a full review of how airports are funded and operate.
We are just asking for a study and not proposing what the actual changes should look like.
Alexis von Hoensbroek is the CEO of WestJet. He's also calling for a freeze in the fees charged on airline tickets and for Ottawa to stop collecting rent from airports.
These recommendations that we are doing are recommendations that are reasonable and that the federal government should consider.
Those rent payments are expected to total more than $400 million for the federal government this year.
The airlines are pressuring the government, and I think it's working.
John Graddick is an aviation expert at McGill University. He thinks privatization of airports is out of the question, but instead to allow outside investment into new infrastructure like parkades or new gates.
They're rethinking the business model, and we'll probably see an announcement within the next couple of months about how that model should change.
Still, the impact on all those fees on airline tickets will likely not change very much, unless experts say there's a new source of revenue for airports or much more competition between airlines. Kyle Bax, CBC News, Calgary.
Canada Post says getting rid of daily mail delivery is not an option. The service is asking the federal government to allow changes in its policies, including how often it delivers letter mail. The Crown Corporation has been bleeding money, and it wants to expand operations in order to compete with private companies who deliver packages on evenings and weekends. Doug Ettinger is the CEO of Canada Post.
At first glance, when you look at it, you say, well, why wouldn't it be reasonable to deliver 2 days a week or 3 days a week? The issue is our network is a collapsed network that carries parcels, direct mail, and letters together.
Ettinger says Canada Post needs to offer 7-day delivery in order to adapt to the times. He also wants Ottawa to change the legislation that mandates how quickly it delivers mail. A Calgary man who has suffered for years from painful cluster headaches is fighting for access to legal psilocybin. It is a naturally occurring ingredient in magic mushrooms. Health Canada denied his bid to access a legal supply, but as Yvette Brand reports, his lawyer says it's easier for him to get access to assisted suicide than the psilocybin to relieve his pain.
Jody Lance has suffered cluster headaches for 7 years, according to his human rights lawyer, Nicholas Pope.
Cluster headaches are, from my understanding, the most painful condition known to humanity.
Pope says his Calgary client tried medications, but nothing worked until his neurologist suggested a compound found in magic mushrooms. But the man's bid to get psilocybin legally was denied by Health Canada. The regulator said there wasn't enough evidence psilocybin was safe or effective for cluster headaches.
Since then, he's been using it. Now he has to get it from a illicit source. And so the consistency of the product isn't as good as if it was from a Health Canada approved supplier.
On May 24th, a federal court judge ordered Health Canada to reconsider the man's case, and this time to carefully consider his charter rights to make reasonable medical choices. That has others applauding. Alison Murden of Burlington has been dealing with cluster headaches for 40 years.
It actually feels like somebody took an ice pick and keeps jabbing it in my face.
She's celebrating the Calgary man's federal court victory.
I am absolutely overwhelmed with happiness.
She hopes Lance and others like her will eventually win safe, legal access to medical-grade psilocybin, the only affordable substance she's found that can ease cluster headache pain in minutes. Yvette Brand, CBC News, Vancouver.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime at cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Well, a mixed bag in the sky out there. A little cloud, Little sun, little rain coming, a lot of wind. Mixed bag for our forecast today, too, in Manitoba. Welcome to your Thursday, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa. We're live downtown on CBC with Information Radio, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or on YouTube. 7:10 AM is the time right now, and more in the forecast, as always, in a moment with Abby. This hour on the program, we're going to be talking about a family-friendly festival that is celebrating Egyptian culture that's coming up in our community. So we'll hear more about what's happening with that. In addition, we all know what else is coming up. Grad season right around the corner now. CBC's Jim Agapito today checking in with a local tailor shop to hear about some of the trends they're noticing when it comes to finding the perfect suit. And then we're building on a serious story. We started hearing yesterday how more teachers are being hurt in their classrooms by their students as violence is up. We have a follow-up this morning. We'll talk to a child and youth mental health specialist about why it's happening from their perspective. What are the trends that they're seeing overall in the data here and in other places? So stay tuned. Right now, though, it is at 7:11. Time to check in with Heather Walls for news headlines.
Good morning. Well, a Winnipeg mother whose 9-year-old daughter got a sexually explicit email from boys in her grade isn't satisfied with how her school handled that situation. She accuses administrators of downplaying and hiding what actually happened. The mother says she's been pushing the school division for accountability and change. A witness in a Winnipeg criminal trial is suing a judge and the provincial government. They allege their name was published on the Manitoba Court of King's Bench website in a written decision despite a publication ban. The witness says they have since suffered multiple violent, physical, and verbal attacks and have had to flee the province. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 7:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Well, let's get into this forecast. I noticed the rain just started over in Brandon, Abby.
Yes, it just started over in Brandon, but we're still enjoying the sunny conditions here in Winnipeg. It is 16 degrees today. We're expecting a lot of clouds to roll in later, and then showers would start sometime late this morning and will be ending by the afternoon period. There's also risk of thunderstorm coming with that, and the winds will be breezy, picking up from the south, and then there's going to be a shift in the direction to the southwest, and today's high will touch 21. For tonight, it will be mainly cloudy. Also, that chance of showers will stay with us, and that risk of thunderstorm is still in the forecast, and the skies will be clearing up late in the evening and remain breezy. Once again, Winnipeg, it's 15 degrees, showers, maybe even thunderstorm, windy today, and a high of 20.
All right, thanks, Abby.
You're welcome.
Let's get into the commute now. Corey Funk.
Yes, only good news today in the commute. If you were commuting home yesterday and it was much slower than usual, that was because the city says experienced, quote, a loss of coordination in the internal clock of certain intersections. That was an issue yesterday, but they have since yesterday evening updated that has now been resolved, it's been cleared, so shouldn't be an issue on your commute on the way in today. But if you do see any other kind of delays going on, let me know what you're seeing out there if you're walking, biking, driving. Would love to hear from you. I can tell you that the river trail is still underwater right now because of those high water levels along the Assiniboine by the Forks. So if you're biking, you'll have to take another way. If you see something else going on, 204-788-3093.
Well, as I mentioned, you are invited to learn more about Egyptian culture this weekend in our community. Winnipeg's St. Mark Coptic Orthodox Church is inviting the community to join them in a celebration featuring food, pharaohs, and family-friendly fun. I've been out to that church myself, covering how they work in community in other ways. Previously, when we were doing shows about a local food bank that gathered there to help people in the area. But this Saturday and Sunday, it's all about the festival. So it's their 17th annual. It's as I mentioned, Manitoba Coptic Egyptian Festival. It happens every year on this weekend, as close as they can get it to June 1st. And that is because to symbolize Mary and Joseph's journey through Egypt. Marianne Attia is the festival's coordinator, and she's with us via Zoom. Hi there, Marianne.
Hi, Marcy. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. And sitting beside you is your son, Saif Gubran, who's volunteering this weekend as well. Hi, Saif.
Hi, thank you so much for having us.
So how busy have you been, Marianne, with getting ready for this weekend?
Oh, we've been busy for a few weeks, of course, preparing the church, administrative stuff. And starting yesterday, we started preparing for the food.
What does that mean, preparing for the food? Like, how many people and what kinds of things do you cook?
The food committee by itself has about 80 volunteers. We prepare at least 2,500 meals.
Wow.
The meals, like the typical Egyptian food, like the beef shawarma, like chicken shawarma, kofta, and also we have our vegan platters, like the koshari, like the falafel, and some other like sides and desserts also that are mostly Egyptian.
Do you have a spot in the church where you can do all of that, or are you having to sort of borrow everybody's kitchens and ovens?
We have a huge, actually, commercial kitchen.
Excellent, excellent. What an undertaking. I mean, that's just the food, but let's talk a little bit about the meaning. Can I ask you, Saif, from your perspective, in volunteering for this, what does it mean for you to be part of it and to be sharing your culture with the rest of Winnipeg?
Yeah, for sure. So as you said, I believe it's the 17th annual Coptic Festival. So I actually attended this festival as a child, attending the kids' corner, seeing all the presentations that happened, and learning more about my culture personally. So now being on the other side of it and being a volunteer, it's just really refreshing to be able to show other people my culture, extend that hand to everyone else in Winnipeg so that they can come, try Egyptian food, see what the Coptic people are about and learn about this festival. So it's just about getting to meet everyone and be proud of our heritage and who we are.
If people are thinking of coming out with a family, Saif, do you know, and your mom can help you out as well if you're not in with every detail, but I'm wondering what's there specifically for the kids this year.
Yeah, so every year we do a kids corner. It has bouncers, face painting, crafts, different snacks, cotton candy, popcorn. So the kids can be well entertained. It's very friendly to all ages, and the parents can get an opportunity to see the church, some of the presentations, try any of the food, go to the photo booth that the whole family can go to. It's always really amusing when everyone can dress up in different costumes. We have pharaoh costumes and different traditional Egyptian clothing.
So lots of different ways in to learn, eh?
Oh yeah, you can be edited right in front of the pyramids, and it's super awesome to see.
Marianne, why do this? Why is it important to you to open up, the church to the community to share in this way?
Well, the thing is, as we said, like this occasion is very specific to the Egyptians. Like, the Holy Family, we're the only country that the Holy Family did visit outside like Israel. So we want to take chance of that opportunity and introduce ourselves to the community, especially as you said, we do some service like the food bank and other things. So we want the community around us to know that we're there and we're doing service in the community.
Saif, there's also music involved, I understand. Can you tell us a bit about a choir that's going to be performing?
Yeah, every year we put on a choir and a mime show that a lot of the youth get involved in. They do songs in English, Arabic, and sometimes also our language, which is Coptic, that's no longer spoken around the world, but we still use it within our church community for hymns. So it's really beautiful to hear and probably something people haven't heard before. It's going to be a really great opportunity to hear something new.
And Marianne, when we say, you've been doing this for 17 years, but what can you share about the growth of the community and how it feels to be in a community that is supportive of one another, but also inclusive and part of course, Greater Winnipeg and Manitoba, and what you've noticed in terms of, raising your family here and how the community's grown?
Oh yeah, it's been very interesting because actually we came to Winnipeg the first year the festival was conducted. So through the years, we see people returning back. People says, oh, yeah, we're waiting for that weekend. And as you said, it's very inclusive. Everybody can come, and that's what you like about Canada. Every culture, every community, they have their own, like the Folklorama, they have their own traditions, they have their own celebrations, which all of us get to celebrate. So that's the greatest thing actually that we have here in Canada.
So before you two go this morning, what have I not asked? What do people need to know about? Are there plans in case it rains? Is it inside and outside? What else would you like to share, Marianne?
Yeah, so as you said, like there is outside, we have a huge parking lot where the food court is, but we have a backup inside the church. Also, there is an educational piece. We have a presentation. We have a guest speaker who's going to talk about the history of Egypt, and she's very renowned, like a renowned speaker. She spoke in the Egyptian Museum in Egypt. She spoke here in the museum in Manitoba Museum. So there will be activities outside and activities inside. So there is always backups.
Excellent. And if people want more information, I have manitobacopticfestival.ca. Is that the right website?
That's the right website. Also, we're going to post the QR code, which will take you like a link to the program, to the menu, to the bio of our guest speaker. So we'll post that also on that website.
Thank you both for getting up early and talking to me, especially given how busy you are with preparing for this weekend. I appreciate having you with us on CBC.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
That is Marianne Atia and Saif Gubran. They're members of the St. Mark Coptic Church. So the Manitoba Coptic Egyptian Festival, Saturday and Sunday, noon to 6 at the church, both inside and outside. Big parking lot, as you heard. Lots of food, lots of activities, lots of opportunity for education and for getting to know each other and community. So this is free to attend. It is 1111 Chevrier Boulevard. And as mentioned, the place to get more details is manitobacopticfestival.ca.
On the topics that matter, your voice should be heard.
I'm really concerned. And I'm not really happy about that.
Radio Noon is where you can voice your take. I'm Janet Stewart. From 12:30 to 1 p.m., Radio Noon opens the phone lines on one important topic.
It just brings everyone together.
Radio Noon's call-in segment, 204-780-0893. We want to hear from you, weekdays on CBC.
Well, speaking of building community, I want to mention something special that I'm going to be heading out to tonight. It is the 15th year for the Humankind International Dinner, and it's at the Franco-Manitoban Cultural Centre in St. Boniface tonight. And Humankind International really started from three men who arrived here in Winnipeg and wanted to give back to where they have come from. So they worked to give back to people who are affected in the Dadaab refugee camp, one of the largest in the world, and they built a school there. Humankind Academy, to help with the children to have consistency in their lives. So every year something gets added. This dinner, the fundraiser, all kinds of events. And so they've added, obviously, space for more students, classrooms, playgrounds, all kinds of different things as Winnipeggers gather together in support. So Humankind Academy has 150 students, 75 from the Dadaab camp and 75 from the local Kenyan community as well. So I have emceed this dinner a number of years now. It's always a really inclusive, wonderful event. So I'm looking forward to that tonight. And tonight, Abby's going with me. So me and Abby are going to head out and represent CBC, and just looking forward to being in community tonight for Humankind International. So 15 years. It's been going on for a very long time. Their academy's been set up, by the way, for 10. It is 7:23 a.m. It's 16 degrees in Winnipeg, mostly cloudy. And over in Brandon, the light rain has now started, and it is coming here. Well, before sports, got a bit of music. The latest song from Toronto group, The Free Label.
In the morning light, no hesitation. I'm feeling for you so strong. Yeah. I hope that I can show you right. It's not hard, the things you're craving so far. Yeah. I know you think you're wrong for me, but I could show you anything to prove you're wrong, baby. You got me lost, I'm so gone. This feeling for you's too strong. I can take you to the moon now, baby. No, it's all yours for the taking. I know you think it's so hard. Don't think, just let me show ya. Got something for you to change your mind. You got everything I wanted, I want you to be mine. I got something for Chevy. Let's ride this roller coaster. Just jump right in, I'll show ya. You can't keep me waiting for this long. It just ain't right. But you kiss me through the phone and I catch a vibe. So what's it gonna be, you and me tonight? Ooh, what's it gonna be, baby?
The Free Label, this is their latest song. It's called Change Your Mind on CBC, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or YouTube. It is 7:25 as mentioned. That means it's time for morning sports. Scott Reguera, good morning.
Good morning, Marcy.
If I sound excited, it's because your first story is about a historic night in women's hockey.
The state of hockey with a championship state of mind. Minnesota has won the first ever Walter Cup.
That's right. TSN's call of Minnesota, Marcy, beating Boston last night for the PWHL title. Considering how dramatic the inaugural final series has been, it was actually a fairly undramatic deciding game. Minnesota had more than double the number of shots than Boston in managing a 3-0 win. And that play-by-play you just heard, by the way, was shown on the scoreboard at Target Field, where the Minnesota Twins fans got a chance to celebrate as well. Here is Minnesota captain Kendall Coyne-Schofield.
There's something very special about being the first to do something. And for us to be the first Walter Cup champions is something that is extremely special, that will be a part of this league's legacy forever. When you end on top, it's just, you never forget it. You know, the legacy of this trophy is only going to keep growing and growing and growing. To be the first it's an honor, it's a privilege.
And what a way to win this first Walter Cup, Marcy. Minnesota, remember, they limped into the playoffs. They had lost 5 straight games, still made it, eked into the postseason, where Toronto chose them as their first-round opponent, and then Toronto shut them out in the first couple of games. It looked like it was going to be done and dusted pretty quickly, but led by Kendall Coyne-Schofield and by the eventual playoff MVP, Taylor Heisey. They went on this incredible run, culminating last night with lifting the Walter Cup, which was delivered in an oversized baby blue Tiffany box. Memorable night, memorable first season for the PWHL. Pretty great. But not the only drama on the ice last night. The Oilers, as we move over to the NHL playoffs, they fell behind 2-0 to Dallas. They reversed the tables and won the game 5-2. So that's all tied up now, heading back to Texas tomorrow night.
Yeah, quite a series there. Let's move to tennis, where rain is having a major impact at the French Open right now.
Yeah, as showers in Paris this morning have forced the suspension of matches that were also suspended yesterday because of precipitation. Bottom line, Felix Auger-Aliassime, Denis Shapovalov's, the Canadians, they got a couple of sets in before they had to sit down again because of the rain, and they split their sets in each of those matches. Meanwhile, in Paris, there's been some controversy, Marcy, in the stands. After her narrow win last night against Naomi Osaka, defending champion Iga Swiatek criticized spectators in Paris.
We're used to the stadium being silent during the point. That's why I wanted to speak out about it, because if it would happen one time, I would just let it go, you know. I know that French crowd can be kind of harsh, so I don't want to be under the radar right now. I don't know if that was a good decision or not, but I hope that they can treat me as a human.
Yeah, we'll see. Belgium's David Goffin has criticized French Open fans in the past, and earlier this week, Goffin said some fans spat gum at him while he was playing against a French opponent. So, you know, the Australian Open, it's nicknamed the Happy Slam for its very welcoming environment. This doesn't appear to be that, not right now anyway.
What makes a person spit gum at another person? Okay, I'm leaving it.
Yeah, I know.
Let's finish up closer to home, where golf's Canadian Open gets underway today.
It does, and we can only hope, Marcy, it matches the drama we saw at last year's tournament and this where were you when moment.
Left the flag stick in with the maple leaf flag. Good pace. Are you serious? Oh my goodness! Glorious and free!
Yeah, I still get chills from
that. It was so good.
Oh, wasn't that good? Winnipeg-born Nick Taylor, of course, ending a 69-year-long Canadian drought with that impossibly long putt. My 6-year-old son Luke, we were brushing our teeth and trying to get him to bed watching that, and he instead said, "I can't sleep. Can we just watch more? I want to play golf, Dad." So I'm sure they'd be thrilled to know that. So they are out on the links now at Hamilton Golf and Country Club, including, by the way, Stony Mountain's Aaron Cockrell, who's also part of the field.
All right, thanks, Scott.
You bet.
And that's Morning Sports with Scott Regehr. Your commute's moving fine, still ahead. We'll check in with the local tailor getting ready for grad right now. Your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it is starting to cloud over really quickly as that wind is strong, gusting right now to 50. It is 16 degrees. We're expecting a high of 21, windy throughout the morning, and we're expecting showers, maybe even a thunderstorm today. A Winnipeg mother whose 9-year-old daughter got a sexually explicit email from boys in her grade accuses the school of downplaying, hiding, and mishandling the situation. Now, CBC is not naming the daughter, the mother, or the school to protect the child's identity. CBC's Rosanna Hempel reports.
It was back in March. A Winnipeg mother says she found out her 9-year-old daughter had recently gotten a sexually explicit email from 2 boys in grade 4. The mother says the principal gave her the impression everything was all right. It was only through follow-up conversations the mother was told the email was about more than the boys wanting to kiss her daughter. It included comments about specific private body parts. The mother says the principal also told her the boys had apologized to her daughter in a meeting at school.
I said, hold on a minute. You made my daughter go into a room with boys that had sexually harassed her? What are you doing?
The mother says she's been pushing the Seven Oaks School Division for accountability and change since it happened. She wants the division to develop a sexual harassment policy so that cases are handled better in the future. The division declined CBC's request for an interview. In a statement, the division superintendent says staff work to build respectful and safe classrooms in schools. Rosanna Hempel, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A witness in a Winnipeg criminal trial is suing a judge and the provincial government. They allege their name was published on the Manitoba Court of King's Bench website in a written decision by Justice Kenneth Champagne, despite a publication ban. The witness says they have since suffered multiple violent physical and verbal attacks and have had to leave Manitoba. They say their ability to live a normal life was destroyed, and they still suffer from ongoing threats. They are seeking general damages as well as special damages to be determined in court. The allegations have not been proven in court. A provincial spokesperson declined comment. A chef who pleaded guilty to deliberately torching a hotel in an eastern Manitoba town has been sentenced to 2 years for arson. As CBC's Josh Crabb reports, he was seeking revenge on the new owners of the Rennie Hotel.
Court heard 65-year-old Pele Lambiase was caught on camera walking into the Rennie Hotel in December 2022 in the early morning hours with a satchel carrying lighter fluid and a barbecue lighter. He then lit a fire in the attached postal outlet that spread quickly to the hotel. No one was inside, but the 80-year-old community hub and gathering spot was destroyed. Lambiase previously pleaded guilty and confessed 3 months after the fire, only after police showed him the surveillance video. Court heard he didn't remember setting the fire because he says he was intoxicated by a mix of alcohol and opiates. Provincial Court Judge Cynthia Devine sentenced Lambiase to 2 years. The judge told court the motivation for the arson was revenge. Court heard he was angry at the new owners of the hotel for an argument and physical altercation between them and his friend who owned the neighboring restaurant in Rennie where he worked as a chef. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A new transitional housing facility just opened in Brandon to help keep Indigenous women safe. Danette Hanmore is the first woman to move into Chelsea's house. It's named after her relative, Chelsea Cote, who died in February and was unhoused at the time. The 7-bed supportive housing unit is staffed around the clock. Hanmore says it will take the community working together to keep people safe.
It should be for anybody in the community that, just wants to get a safe place to rest and, to eat. Food brings people together, place to listen to music, whatever, just chill out and relax, because a lot of, that's hard to do anywhere around here.
Brandon's Homelessness Individuals Families Information System database says since 2020, at least 12 Indigenous women utilizing homelessness resources have died in Brandon. The bomb unit had to be called out to a home in Transcona after someone found a real live grenade in their garage. Winnipeg police say the call came in Tuesday afternoon. They say a person found the grenade while they were cleaning out the garage in the Kildare-Redonda neighborhood. The bomb unit, along with the help of the Canadian Armed Forces ammunition technicians, safely removed the live grenade. Police say the origin of the grenade is not known, and it wasn't believed to have been stored with criminal intent. They say explosive devices are occasionally found inside commercial or residential buildings and should always be treated as live. They warn you not to touch it, but to call 911. And Manitoba canine lovers are not happy about new rules on taking dogs across the border. We told you about these rules yesterday. Starting in August, dogs will have to be older than 6 months and have microchips to be let into the U.S. Owners will also have to provide a form certifying rabies vaccination signed by a vet within 30 days of travel time. Trina Gallup owns dogs and competes in shows.
On top of travel, entry fees and things like that, now you also have to plan for your vet visit costs on top of all of that, right? So, if you're bringing multiple dogs to a show, you have to have vet visits for all of those dogs to get your form signed in time to be valid to go down into the state.
And Gallup hopes the rules can be loosened at some point. You can find more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
Time now for our regional forecast with Abby Adiyemi. And you got some sunshine out here in the downtown, but it's not going to stay.
I know it looks pleasant. It's still 16 degrees. I'll take that for now. But you should be expecting increasing cloudiness throughout this morning period with showers likely later on. Maybe even a rumbling thunder would be felt in some parts of the city. Now, the winds picking up already, shifting from the south to the southeast. It's going to be reaching a high of 21 today, and tonight we'll see some clouds which would stick around and a chance of showers into later in the night. Then it's going to be clearing up. Heading west to Brandon, already seeing rain showers there. Currently 14 degrees. That rain shower will be coming with some thunderstorm also, so you should expect that. And the winds will be picking up from the southeast later on, shifting to the southwest. We're looking at a high of 21 for folks in Brandon. As we move north to Thompson, it is 14 degrees and partly cloudy. Today we'll be enjoying mainly sunny skies with increased cloudiness later in the day and a chance of showers by late afternoon, with the winds also from the south reaching a high of 24. Further north in Churchill, currently 11 degrees and cloudy. Expect mainly cloudy conditions to stick with you, and then it's going to be clearing up later in the afternoon with the winds becoming southeast, a high of 18. That's what we see in the forecast. Down in Dauphin, where it's 14 degrees, also seeing rain shower already. It's going to be accompanied by a risk of thunderstorm. Winds will be coming from the southeast, becoming westerly, reaching a high of 19. Gimli is at 16 degrees. The Interlake region is expecting some cloud cover later, with showers likely this morning into the afternoon period, along with a chance of thunderstorms. And then the breezy conditions is also something the parts of the southern part of the province will be seeing. High for Gimli today, 21. Steinbach is at 16, partly cloudy also. Today's forecast includes mainly sunny skies, then some clouds would show up. We'll see some showers this morning and possibly some thunderstorm in the afternoon. We'll be getting to a high of 20. Finally, in Morris, it's 16. Today's forecast for the Pembina Valley region includes increasing cloudiness with showers expected throughout the day, a risk of thunderstorm, winds picking up from the south, and the high would reach 22. In Winnipeg, it's clear. It's 16 right now. We're seeing some sunshine. The clouds will roll in, the showers would roll in, and we might get some thunderstorm.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
You're welcome.
Corey Funk, you just got a call actually about the
Yes,
commute.
you probably heard it ringing in there. Just got a call. It doesn't know exactly what's going on, but the caller said right northbound Abenoji-Mikina, right around Dakota is a parking lot right now. He's looking ahead and nothing's really moving. Not totally sure why. So I'm curious if folks are out there, they know what's going on ahead there, northbound Abenoji-Mikina. let me know. Give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That's really the only issue out there so far this morning.
Did they give it where? Northbound Abinogi-Mackinac?
At Dakota.
At Dakota. Sorry, you said that. I just want to write it down.
Yes.
Yep.
So if you know what's going on, 204-788-3093.
Okay, thanks to the callers this morning, and thank you, Corey.
Thank you.
Yeah. Next on the program, we already started talking about grad, and that's because look at the calendar, folks. It's June already this weekend. A Winnipeg tailor shop is stepping up the suit game for grad season this year. It helps teens think more outside the box when it comes to choosing their formal attire. CBC's Jim Agapito recently visited Aldo Formal Wear to hear what it's been like this season. And he spoke there with longtime owner Ken Lozano and female stylist Jasmine Gonzalez and Simran Basi.
This one's actually called our jacquard fabric, right? The fabric is embossed, right? So it kind of gives it that nice, distinguished kind of look. We see a lot of different students every year wanting to look the best for their special moment. I first ask the student if they want to make a statement or if they just want to blend in or wear something a little bit more settled. See what their purpose is, and whatever it is, we'll make it happen. The great thing about this is that you can wear it open or buttoned up.
When someone asks for a suit, I'm like, very good decision because it's a custom fit. It's going to look better. It's going to fit you really good, right? And the other thing is, I feel that when they're investing in a suit, it's not for a one-time thing. You can always, it has a multi-purpose reason to get a suit done. It's quite popular is green, sage green or olive green.
Show them different fabrics, different ideas, and kind of show them different samples of what we could do here. Something a little bit more fun, unique, and something that you don't see every day. Because of social media, they see all the superstars, the celebrities, the athletes on Instagram perhaps, and they kind of want to look that way, right? Not every student's like that, but they have that advantage compared to when we grew up because we come from a different era.
Nowadays, I see a lot of grads going brighter, more bright blues, reds, kind of like a statement piece because, it's their grad. They want to stand out more. It's their last day in high school. They want to make a statement.
Women usually like to wear high-waisted stuff, so I kind of designed this according to the best way I like it on me is like a crop jacket and a high-waisted pant, but whatever they like and more fitted is what I would prefer for a women client.
We want to make sure when we take measurements or style it that it's comfortable to them even if they change sizes. Very nice.
When the student, when he tries it on for the first time, when the garment is done, and when you see a smile on his face or when his mother is all happy and crying sometimes, it really hits hard that we're doing a great job here, and nothing beats that. It's amazing.
CBC's Jim Agapito.
You kind of cherish those younger years. So sometimes before they leave, I always say, enjoy your last moments before you graduate. Because me, I was a COVID kid, so I didn't get to have that graduation. So I like to tell my grad kids, enjoy your last year. I think it's the best way to make memories.
Pardon me there. That is the CBC's Jim Agapito speaking to stylist Jasmine Gonzalez. And before that, we also heard from Aldo's formal wear stylist Simran Basi and owner Ken Lozano. Now, to see some of the suits, you can catch it online. You can see the piece online, the video, at cbc.ca/Manitoba as we get into grad season. Now, this prompts me to ask a question I ask every single June. I know we're not quite there, but we will be on the weekend, June 1st, knocking on our door. Tell us about your grad. Who are you proud of this year? Who is going to be donning the cap and gown? And that could be at any age, grade level, university, post-secondary, adult learning. Who are you proud of? Share the story, 788-3205.
We carry a world of information in our pockets because we want to know. Breaking news that shapes our world. Staying on top of stories around the globe. And connected close to home. It's news you can trust. Delivered when you want and where you want on Canada's News app. Now with CBC Radio 1, local and live. Download the CBC News app for free.
Got a call on the commuter line with an update. Craig called, said northbound Abenujimi-Mackinac cleared up pretty quickly ahead after Dakota. Clears up rather pretty quickly ahead after Dakota. So you might still find backups there, but then once you're through that, it looks like it's improved. So it's a temporary backup is what Craig said on the traffic line. 788-3093 if you have any other updates. Well, coming up, I also want to mention after 8 o'clock on the program, we're going to build more detail, or rather hear more detail from a Winnipeg mom who's in the news this morning. She says she's dealing with the aftermath of her preteen daughter receiving a sexually explicit email from 2 fellow students. But she alleges the school administrators were not truthful about the contents, about what was sent, and also didn't initially tell her that they pulled her daughter into a meeting with the 2 students that sent the email. And so she has a lot of concerns, but she also says she has concerns about the lack of a standardized policy within the division to deal with situations like this. So she's fighting to understand and get improvements for all students. But it starts with the story of her daughter. So we're going to hear more on her story coming up after 8 o'clock right here on Information Radio. First music from Cape Breton songwriter Elise Aaron. This tune's called Cowboy.
Never waits for permission, doesn't pay no attention to the things that they do, doesn't care for the rules. There's one life to be living, no way to be fenced in, like a wild horse running, running, and it sounds like ooh, somewhere in the wild blue, taking me away and laughing in the face of danger, faster, faster. I'm not afraid, letting go of the reins, faster. I'm in love with the freedom, I'm in love with the way. It's everything I've been needing, and I don't need to be saved. I'm in love with a cowboy. I'm in love with a cowboy. When I need justice, someone I can trust in, looks me dead in the eye, reflections don't lie, shows me all the good when I'm misunderstood, like an outlaw running, running, and it sounds like ooh, somewhere in the wild blue, taking me away and laughing in the face of danger, faster, faster. I'm not afraid, letting go of the reins, faster. I'm in love with the freedom, I'm in love with the way. It's everything I've been needing, and I don't need to be saved. I'm in love with a cowboy. I'm in love with a cowboy.
It's Elise Aaron out of Sydney, Nova Scotia. If you want to get that music on your own list, it's called Cowboy. It's 12 minutes to 8 o'clock now on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or YouTube. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for being with us and our whole team here at Information Radio on CBC. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Behind the glass, Brad Lillies, Abby Adiemi, and Corey Funk this morning. Corey, by the way, has just notified me that he has secured a guest, someone that's going to come on with us after 8 o'clock that he spoke with this morning to share her story of being diagnosed with breast cancer at the age of 42. Now, this isn't the backdrop of a story that's been making news. You can read this on our website. The province says it's taking a cautious approach to potentially lowering the breast cancer screening age. In Manitoba, it is 50. The Manitoba PCs have joined a national call to lower the age for self-referral breast cancer screening to 40. So we're going to talk to a breast cancer survivor here on the program after 8 o'clock. Right now on the show, though, if you were with us yesterday, teachers say there is an uptick in violence in Manitoba classrooms. The Manitoba Teachers Society was on with us, saying teachers are being slapped, kicked, and even spat upon by their own students. And it's not just high schoolers, it is kids in elementary school as well. Now, this is a clip from my interview yesterday with Nathan Martindale, who's with MTS.
It's a complex issue, and there's a couple of reasons.
And what it comes down to is something that we've been speaking about for several years now, and that's a lack of adequate funding. So we had 7 years of chronic underfunding by the previous government. The funding did not keep up with enrollment, inflation, and student needs. And some of those student needs are the fact that some students need support in the classroom, whether that's an EA working with them in the classroom or access to clinicians. So over the years, there's been less clinicians, less support for these students, as well as less EAs. So that is one of the reasons that's led to a rise in violent incidents in the classroom.
Lena Anjamari is our guest this morning as we continue talking about this. She's a child and youth mental health specialist, scientist, practitioner, and director of the Child Development Institute in Toronto. She says the issue is complex and also reflective of some larger societal issues. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Marcy. How are you?
I'm well. So what do you think when you hear about these violent episodes happening in Manitoba schools? Specifically teachers, being harmed by students?
Marcy, time is of the essence. We talk about that all the time, and good enough is no longer enough. And I totally agree with what Nathan said. It is an extremely complex issue. We have seen the stats that educators have been personally subjected, as you said, to violence, or seen another member, like 77% of teachers. And when you look at members who work in special education, that number rises to like 86%. So we have a problem, and we need to think about solutions that are going to work to keep our kids in school and safe, and our educators also in school and safe.
So what do some of those solutions look like? And if we can sort of also react to what Nathan said, which part of it in his view is just more support.
So, of course, more support is needed, and funding is always an issue, but we have to think creatively and innovatively how to work together. So it's not only government, it is foundations, it is, donors or business sectors. We all have to work together to be part of the solution. And what we know is that we can't just give kids anything or educators anything. They need to be really thoughtful, and we need to think about, are they evidence-based or evidence-informed? Do they work? Do they cause more harm or not? So we have to be really careful here when we're looking at programs or solutions or strategies to help our young people.
So you're saying don't just sort of add EAs into the classroom and move on and say we've dealt with it.
Well, we do need more EAs, and we need competent. And I think that's the word I'm going to say is competent EAs. Competent CYWs or child and youth workers or child and youth care workers, for example, or specialized people who understand the complexity of the needs that are coming into the schools. These kids have experienced, trauma is a major issue. Trauma, a lot of complex issues, a lot of risk factors. We know all kinds of things impede our kids, everything from physical abuse to sexual abuse to all kinds of issues with regards to in-home issues that are going on, or addictions or mental health issues. So I talk about our kids are facing the perfect storm. And we need to think about, when you think about all these things that are coming at our kids and our educators, these things cause kids to be anxious, they cause them to be angry and sad, and they hit and they swear and they're stressed. But it also causes educators to feel the same way at times, right? Mm-hmm. And so we need to think about for example, if we are co-regulated, if we're regulated and we're using really good self-control, we are modeling that for the kids, and we're going to help them. That's not only the only solution, because sometimes we need to intervene, and early intervention and prevention is critical in helping these young people. And one of the things that we need to do better is think about, how do we assess kids for level of risk and need that are in front of us. If we see a child is dysregulated, if we're seeing that a child is angry, if we're seeing that a young person is isolated, what are we doing in order to, get that child in front of us so we can properly assess them to determine what's going on, what are their risks, what are their needs, so that we can intervene appropriately and put in the right interventions. There's no such thing as a one-stop all, right?
There may be educators or EAs listening this morning that are thinking, we actually know what to do, but the time to do it, the dwindling workforce, you said a lack of competency can be an issue. But of course, lack of competency is only because of a lack of training to be competent, right? So what's your suggestion about sort of maybe first steps? I mean, because if there's, as you said, if there's somebody in the classroom that can't deal with this or doesn't know how to deal with these situations because they can be very specific and specialized, do we have a gap in training people as well?
I think we have a gap in training, but I think we also have a gap in evidence-based solutions that aren't being implemented. And you can have a lot of really good evidence-based solutions, but implementation of those solutions takes a really critical science. There's a field called implementation science, which is all about how do you implement and sustain really good strategies and evidence-based solutions. You know, Dr. Alex Picaro, for example, really great criminologist, says, for my money, there is no better way to prevent crime or improve many outcomes throughout life than to build up self-control of individuals, right? Our kids are dysregulated, a lot of them. The pandemic did do a number on our kids. It did a number on a lot of us. I know it impacted me, for example, as well. So we need to think about what kind of intervention solution strategies should we be investing in. And, I looked at what kind of services and stuff Manitoba has been implementing, in your province. And there's a lot of great things that has been put in place, like communities of care and instituted evidence-based programs like Family First, which even way before they get to school, and thought about suicide prevention and a turnabout program that's a referral mechanism. But what I didn't see is evidence-based programs for middle year schools, and then how do you carry that out to high school? And one of the best solutions, as Alex said, is we need to think about how to help our kids stop now and think before they act to make better solutions in that moment so that they stay in school and out of trouble. And as we talked before on your show, one of the programs that we've been developing for over 40 years and implementing across Canada, which we still don't have in Manitoba, is the SNAP program, which stands for Stop Now and Plan. It's an evidence-based solution originally designed for kids in elementary school-age kids, and it teaches them how to make better choices, how to stop when they're feeling angry, get regulated, and come up with solutions that are going to make their problems smaller instead of bigger.
Lots for us to take away from the conversation here in Manitoba. Thank you very much, Lena, for being part of our discussion today.
You're very welcome. It's great talking to you as always.
Lena Augimeri, a child and youth mental health specialist, scientist, practitioner, and director of the Child Development Institute in Toronto. She was alluding to us talking before because you might recall us doing a series on youth violence overall some months back. We're talking this morning, though, because of yesterday's conversation from the Manitoba Teachers Society, specifically looking at teachers noticing an uptick in violence in their classrooms and facing violence being perpetrated by students, on teachers, against teachers. So looking for solutions. If you're a teacher listening and you want to weigh in, you know where to reach us. It is 3 minutes to 8 o'clock, and Heather Wells is in right now with our headlines.
Good morning. Well, a Winnipeg mother whose 9-year-old daughter got a sexually explicit email from boys in her grade isn't satisfied with how her school handled the situation. She accuses administrators of downplaying and hiding what happened. The mother says she is now pushing Seven Oaks School Division for accountability and change. And the bomb unit had to be called out to a home in Transcona after someone found a live grenade in their garage. Police say a person found it over the noon hour Tuesday while cleaning the garage out. The bomb unit, along with the help of Canadian Armed Forces ammunition techs, safely removed that live grenade. We'll hear more coming up in our next local news at 8:30.
Wow. Okay, thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
It is 2 minutes now to 8. It's 16 degrees. It's mostly cloudy, a high of 21. A few showers beginning late this morning. Really windy this afternoon with a risk of a thunderstorm as well. On the commute this morning, call us if you see any major problem. If northbound Abinogi-Mackinac is a problem at Dakota still, call us 788-3093. Let us know if that's improved for you. Still ahead after 8 o'clock, we're going to talk to that mom that Heather mentioned. We're going to hear from her. I had a full 30-minute conversation with her on Wednesday, so we'll hear exactly what she has to say about her concerns about what happened to her daughter and the overall concerns that she has with the division and the school. Also, we are going to hear more from a breast cancer survivor. She was diagnosed at 42, and she's going to react to the fact that the province says it's looking into potentially making a change to lowering screening age.
On Cue with Tom Power.
It just feels like destiny, and this is Destiny's child.
Alana Glazer's new movie, Babes, isn't just about someone finding out that they're pregnant and choosing to have the baby. It's about the friendships that change as you grow up and start to have kids. She'll be here to talk about the film, about Broad City, and getting comfortable with getting older. That's coming up on Cue, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
Jeans are having a wild moment, from pants that look like you had an accident in the bathroom to tiny shorts called jundies. What denim trends tell us about our relationship to work, class, and the search for cool, coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. They are known as the Hong Kong 47, pro-democracy activists charged under Beijing's strict national security law. Today, just 2 of them were acquitted by a Hong Kong court. The rest could face life in prison. Critics say this is another example of the government crushing civil liberties and creating a climate of fear. Freelance reporter Laura Westbrook is outside the court.
Under a heavy police presence, crowds lined up to witness the verdict in the biggest national security trial since Beijing imposed the legislation in the wake of the 2019 anti-government protests. Some, like former opposition lawmaker Emily Lau, had high hopes ahead of the ruling.
I hope that we can turn over a new leaf to go back to be a city where we have freedom of the press, freedom of assembly, freedom of demonstration.
Known as the Hong Kong 47, the group is made up of some of the city's most prominent pro-democracy figures, such as Joshua Wong. They were charged with conspiracy to commit subversion. 16 decided to fight the charges, but only 2 were acquitted, including Lawrence Lau, who walked free from court and thanked those outside. Prosecutors said the accused tried to gain a legislative majority, and their ultimate goal was to force the leader of Hong Kong at the time, Carrie Lam, to resign. The court ruled that the scheme would have created political instability in Hong Kong, leading to a constitutional crisis. Across the road from the court was a sole protester known here as Grandma Wong.
We still have hope. I'm sure I will not give up.
Those found guilty will be sentenced at a later date, and they face up to life in prison. Laura Westbrook for CBC News, Hong Kong.
The Israeli military now controls Gaza's entire land border. Spokesperson Daniel Hagari says it took control of the Philadelphia corridor yesterday. It includes a strategically important buffer zone between Gaza and Egypt.
Hamas ניצל את מרחב פילדלפי.
Hagari says Hamas was taking advantage of that area. He says the group used it to smuggle weapons into the Gaza Strip, and he says Israeli troops discovered roughly 20 tunnels there. Egypt's state-linked news channel says there is no truth to that report. It says an Egyptian government source says Israel is using these allegations to justify continuing its operation in Gaza. On Prince Edward Island, dozens of foreign workers are on a hunger strike. They're entering their 7th day with no food, and some of them have stopped drinking water. They're protesting recent immigration changes by the provincial government. As Steve Bruce tells us, they say those changes rob them of a chance at permanent residency.
I'm feeling dizzy sometimes. I fainted twice or thrice.
Jaspreet Singh Sivia says after a week without any food and a day now without water, he is worried about his health.
But we don't have any other choice. They have left us no other choice.
He's among a couple dozen foreign workers on PEI, many of them sales and service workers, on a hunger strike outside the provincial legislature. Most of them moved to Canada's smallest province with open work permits and hopes of getting nominated for permanent residency. But the provincial government is moving forward with plans to cut the number of sales and service workers that will get a nomination from more than 800 last year to just 200 this year. Premier Dennis King's government says it needs to slow population growth and to focus on attracting more healthcare, childcare, and construction workers.
Our hands are tied because...
So those on this hunger strike and others are now worried they'll have to leave Canada. Rupinder Pal Singh says that's unless government extends their work permits.
We want to be here. We want to stay here. This is the extreme we can take it to in order to prove that.
Yesterday, paramedics had to be called to help two of the people going without food and water, though the hunger strikers say they will keep it up until the PEI government supports them or health issues force them to stop. Steve Bruce, CBC News, Charlottetown.
Public health experts in India say they expect more people in hospital and deaths from the scorching heat. Delhi is in the midst of a heat wave. Another record for the hottest day was broken yesterday. The mercury there hit 52.9 degrees Celsius. At least one person died in the capital city as a result of that heat. Amruthi Norasarma is an environmental health expert.
What we anticipate is that as warming continues worldwide, but particularly in this region, these summertime periods of extreme heat waves will become more frequent and also more intense and also will be longer lasting.
Nori Sarma says prolonged periods of extreme heat are especially dangerous. It doesn't give the human body enough time to recuperate. Iran has opened a 5-day registration period for presidential hopefuls. Election day is scheduled for June 28th. Iranians need to choose a replacement for Ibrahim Raisi. The former president was killed in a helicopter crash earlier this month. Potential candidates must be 40 years old or up to 75 years old, and they have at least a master's degree. They will ultimately need to be approved by a council that includes Iran's supreme leader. That panel has never accepted a woman or anyone calling for radical change in the country's governance. Later this hour, the jury in Donald Trump's hush money trial will begin a second day of deliberations. There's no indication when to expect a verdict, but some observers say it could take days. The CBC's Chris Reyes has more.
The jury will be back in the courtroom this morning after more than 4 hours of deliberations on Wednesday. They requested the judge's instructions again and to rehear key testimony from the prosecution's star witness Michael Cohen and former publisher of the National Enquirer David Pecker, talking about that meeting at Trump Tower in 2015 when the trio allegedly conspired to aid Trump's presidential campaign by killing damaging stories about him. Ty Cobb is a former special counsel to Donald Trump.
I find that interesting that they're already sort of, debating who said what when. I think it shows that they're taking it seriously. They want to be right.
To reach a guilty verdict, the jury must unanimously find that Donald Trump falsified business records with intent to commit election fraud. The charges are in connection to hush money payments made to adult film star Stormy Daniels and two others leading up to the 2016 elections. Trump railed against the case soon after the judge delivered his instructions to the jury.
I would say, in listening to the charges from the judge, who's, as you know, very conflicted and corrupt, because of the confliction, very, very corrupt. Mother Teresa could not beat these charges. These charges are rigged.
The jury will deliberate until they come to a decision. They're currently not sequestered, which means they get to go home at the end of each day. Chris Reyes, CBC News, New York.
We have a correction and a geography lesson about Canada's deepest lake. On Saturday, we aired a story about Great Slave Lake's low water levels. The story said the Mackenzie River drains into Great Slave Lake. In fact, the Mackenzie carries water from the lake north to the Beaufort Sea. Canada Post is making its case to Ottawa for more help to stay competitive and adapt to the times. The Crown Corporation has been losing money for years. Marina von Stackelberg has the latest.
Alternative day delivery is not on the table.
Canada Post CEO Doug Ettinger told a House of Commons committee last night the company will not ask Ottawa to change its mandate of delivering daily mail.
At first glance, when you look at it, you say, well, why wouldn't it be reasonable to deliver 2 days a week or 3 days a week? The issue is our network is a collapsed network that carries parcels, direct mail, and letters together.
Edinger says that means the routes have to be covered every day so Canada Post can try to compete. Because as letter mail collapses, e-commerce is booming. But Canada Post is quickly losing that market share to private couriers who can employ low-paid gig workers who deliver on weekends, which Canada Post does not do because it would cost too much in overtime pay.
It is a fight. I'm not being dramatic by saying that. So our business model needs to be updated. It is done. Finished.
Canada Post wants Ottawa to be more flexible with how fast it must deliver mail so it can save on transport costs. And it wants to be able to raise stamp prices like the UK and US postal services do without going through a major federal regulatory process. Edinger says Canada Post submitted its corporate plan last fall of how it planned to sustain itself for the next few years, but the government hasn't approved it. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Ottawa.
And that is the latest national and international news for World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa. We've got some sun downtown, but don't be fooled. We've got rain coming. Thanks for joining us here on CBC on your Thursday morning. You're on 89.3. You also might be on the app or on YouTube, so no matter how you're tuning into CBC, appreciate you coming along with us this morning. We've got a couple stories this half hour that are interesting and have big implications. So one of them is a Winnipeg mom who says she's dealing with the aftermath of her preteen daughter receiving a sexually explicit email from two fellow students. So her daughter's 9. She alleges that the school administrators were not truthful about the contents about what was sent. And she's fighting to have better standardized policies in place for all students. Also, this half hour, she was diagnosed with an aggressive form of breast cancer at 42 and says if screening started at 40 instead of 50 in this province, it could have been caught and treated sooner. We're going to hear her story, and that's in the backdrop of a conversation that is happening right now politically. So Manitoba's PC opposition is calling for that screening age to be lowered. Health Minister Uzoma Oseguera said Wednesday the province is looking into potentially making the change, but they need to address capacity issues first. So you can read the article online. We're going to hear from that breast cancer survivor coming up this half hour. Right now, let's get into a conversation with Heather Welsh. She's here with headlines.
Good morning. Well, a chef who pleaded guilty to deliberately torching a hotel in an eastern Manitoba town has been sentenced to 2 years for arson. Court heard Pele Lambiase deliberately set the Rennie Hotel fire using lighter fluid and a barbecue lighter, seeking revenge on the new owners of that hotel. We'll hear more. Also, a new transitional housing facility just opened in Brandon to keep Indigenous women safe. Those stories and more coming up at 8:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
Well, we're now, Abby, the warmest spot in the province.
Yep, we are at 18 degrees and it's still sunny outside. We're expecting some clouds to crawl in after that. Today we will see these showers beginning late this morning and ending in the afternoon period. Don't forget there's a risk of thunderstorm this afternoon and it will be quite breezy with winds picking up from the south and then later shifting southwest. The high for today will reach 21 and tonight mainly cloudy. Some showers would stick with us. Risk of thunderstorm, but nothing really much to talk about that. Right now it's 18.
All right, thanks, Abby.
You're welcome.
Have your shades to start, your umbrella to end. It's already raining over in Brandon, I see. Let's get into the commute. Corey, what do we know?
Yeah, actually, City's updated on a road closure that might impact your commute for a little while here, actually. Eastbound Inkster Boulevard is actually closed now from Main Street to Sinclair Street, and that westbound is also down to one lane, and that's actually supposed to be in place until late this year. So heads up there if you're heading down eastbound Inkster from Main Street to Sinclair is closed entirely. That's the biggest issue out there right now. It's been pretty quiet overall, but if you do see something going on, if you're walking, biking, driving, give me a call. I'll let folks know what you're seeing. 204-788-3093.
Now, we do have, Abby, I'm just going to actually, maybe we can put this caller through live. Is there a way? Oh, they're gone. Okay. Apparently, there's been an incident on Southbound Colony with a cyclist, but we're still getting details on that. So if you have an update, 788-3093. And that Corey's just on the line, by the way, with the caller that called in that tip. So we'll get more information to you. But right now, Colony southbound, you might want to take special attention there just in case. It sounds like there's been an incident. It is 8:14 right now on 89.3. And next on the program, more details on a story that's been in the news this morning. A Winnipeg mom says her grade 4 daughter received a sexually explicit email from 2 boys at the same school. But when she tried to get answers about it, she says the principal and vice principal both tried to downplay it, and she alleges misled her about the contents of the email and how sexually explicit it was. Now she's dealing with the aftermath. She's still trying to get answers about what is going to be done going forward, and she's fighting for better policies for all students. Now, because this story involves minors, we will not be naming the mother, her daughter, or the school to protect people's identities. We have also made the decision not to share the exact explicit content of the message on radio, which will give you an indication of the types of things that may have been in it. As you heard in the news, it did involve mention of her daughter's body parts. We can share this happened in a school in the Seven Oaks School Division. I spoke to the parent on Wednesday.
Good morning.
Let's start at the beginning. When did you find out about this email?
So on March 11th, I received a phone call from the principal of the school to let me know that my daughter had received an email from some boys that was sexually explicit. And that's what I was told at that time. And that she had already done an investigation. She had spoken with the boys' parents, and all was well from here on out.
Now, when you say an email from students to students, are these school accounts?
Yeah, so there are school accounts that they have. From what I understand, it was sent on a Friday night, but it was impossible to confirm because, as we'll talk about, the emails were all deleted. When the principal had called me, and I always follow up with an email. So you just said the word sexually explicit and my daughter, and yet you think everything is fine. And so once I followed up with an email and also all of the policies that I could find on electronics in the division and policies that I could find on the way schools are supposed to operate, and had sent that, I got a phone call right away from the principal again. And that phone call, she told me that the email only actually really spoke about how they wanted to give my daughter a kiss on her juicy lips. I was then told by the principal that she had had my daughter come into a room with the boys who had sent this email so that they could apologize to her.
When did you ask to see? Did you say, I want to see the email?
Yes, I did.
And they said?
It's been deleted. Your daughter deleted it, is what I was told.
So how did you get access to it then?
I didn't see it until I pushed. I was refused again the next morning. They told me that they didn't see any point in giving me the email. They had solved the situation, so really nothing was going to come of it. And the words that I got from the principal were, what are you even going to do with this?
So you finally did get them to show you the email.
And it was clear that it was very much different than the way in which I was led to believe.
What was your reaction when you realized that what you'd been told and what was the contents of this email were at odds?
I was disgusted. I mean, I send my children to school, and my thought process when I do that is that they're going to a place where they care and they're going to take care of her. And in that moment, when I realized that an actual administration was lying to a parent.
This meeting that you were told happened to bring your daughter together with the 2 boys. Mm-hmm. When did that happen?
So that happened the day my daughter discovered the email.
And when were you told that happened?
I was told in the second phone call I got from the principal. And I said, hold on a minute. You made my daughter go into a room with boys that had sexually harassed her? What are you doing?
I just want to ask a couple of questions around the specific responses you received from different officials along the way about how seriously you felt this was being taken or not.
I was told that it was considered just a bad incident. They said it wasn't sexual harassment, because it didn't meet the definition of happening more than once. Right from the get-go, I have asked for training for that administration. And when I brought that up to the assistant superintendent, I was told that the principal knows. I mean, after this, she'll know how to do this better. And I said, Not on the back of my daughter will this be considered training. You need to put something in place to ensure this doesn't happen to other children.
You've alluded to some of this through our conversation, but how do you wish the school had handled this and the division?
Oh my goodness. You need to train your administrators so that if something like this happens again, and it will, then what are they going to do? They should be calling an advocate for that child first and foremost, so they have someone present with them. They should be having a process that is followed, that everyone knows the steps along the way, so that a child isn't traumatized and parents aren't having things hidden from them and things are out in the open. That's the only way things can get better. Also, the boys that sent this, I in no way blame these boys. In a lot of the conversations that I've had with the administrators, we throw the blame right on to what kids are looking at on the internet these days. But what we're not seeing with that is the accountability that still has to happen in the schools. I've asked for counseling for them as well, for those boys. My child has been taught that in school, this school no less, by the teachers are amazing, that if something is wrong, you tell someone. And if that person doesn't listen, you tell the next person. And then the next person. That's what you do to get things done. And that's what you do to take care of yourself. Well, here we are in this situation now, and I told someone. We talked about it, and nothing is done.
What does accountability look like for you now?
What I've been told in terms of accountability for these individuals, and I've asked many times, is that they've had a conversation with them and that it is private. I'm sorry, but that's not enough.
I want to get the days right, so that the
superintendent
has had a conversation with the principal.
Yes. As a parent who refuses to be scared into submission here, and I told the superintendent that too, until you put a process in place, I will not go away.
A process in place to deal with these kinds of incidents in schools, a
Yes.
policy, something that's followed that you can measure against.
Yes, absolutely.
How's your daughter doing now?
My daughter is doing well. We continue to see a counselor. The biggest flag for me, though, with my daughter was her bus driver. So her bus driver would have zero knowledge. She sees him every day. She is a bus patrol. But he came to me to say, you know what? Your daughter isn't doing what she normally does.
So you feel there's been a behavior change with your daughter? You're in
Absolutely.
After
So
this.
my daughter, while she is strong and she will have a lot of support through her life, in that moment that this happened, she lost power. As a 9-year-old, she was taught to be a good little girl and do what people told her to do. In a moment, to accept apologies from boys who had harassed her instead of being able to say no.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
That's part of a conversation I had Wednesday, and I had an extensive conversation with this parent of a Winnipeg grade 4 student who received a sexually explicit email from 2 fellow students. Susan Strauss is a harassment and bullying consultant based in Burnsville, Minnesota. Now, she spoke to CBC's Rosanna Hempel, who, and if you want to read Rosanna's article on this, it's on cbc.ca/Manitoba. And this is how she responded when Rosanna asked her about the fact that the girl, the principal had the girl come into the same room as the boys who sent the email for an apology.
By having her have to be in front of the boys that were the perpetrators, that was probably the antithesis of what anybody should do. I feel sorry for the little girl because it did re-victimize her, and I think her parents were totally right on the mark. Now, following through on what you're going to do is you've got to look at prevention. And you've got to get the kids involved in prevention. What is harassment? Do you even use that word, harassment, or do you use another word when you're talking about the little ones?
We asked the Seven Oaks School Division more than once for a response, and also requested interviews with the principal. The superintendent, Tony Kreml, said he could not comment on this instance, but said, quote, Seven Oaks staff work on a daily basis to build safe, respectful, and caring communities in our classrooms and schools. Our goal is to teach children to do the right thing, understand one another, and learn from their mistakes. This has been our work and will continue to be so as we teach our students to be respectful, considerate, and safe. And if you want to read more on the story, cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Your neighborhood, your community, your country, your world, your news that matters. News that belongs to you. Your World Tonight. Every night, 7 days a week on CBC Radio 1. On demand on the CBC Listen app and everywhere you get your podcasts.
8:24 a.m. is the time right now on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or YouTube. Well, next up on Information Radio, Manitoba's PC opposition is calling for the breast cancer screening age to be lowered from 50 to 40. And that is for a self-reported screening. Health Minister Uzoma Azaguera said Wednesday the province is looking into potentially making the change, but capacity issues would need to be addressed first. For Shannon Coates, my next guest, that change can't come soon enough. Just under 2 years ago, she was diagnosed with an aggressive form of breast cancer. She was just 42 years old. She's now 6 months post-chemo and with us now. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for sharing your story and being with us. Can you outline more about, your feeling that it's important to have that screening age lowered to 40?
Yes, absolutely. So myself, obviously diagnosed at age 42. It was quite frustrating having a very intense background of my family, having breast cancer and being denied year after year of being denied the mammograms. It's unfortunate that here in Manitoba, women aged 40 to 49 in Manitoba can't self-refer for the screening of a mammogram.
And we should use that language, self-referral for screening, because, I mean, that's really what's at the heart of this. It would mean that not every single woman at 40 would go for a mammogram, but if you go in and say, I have family history, then you would get one. How many times did you ask for one?
I've been asking since 35. My grandma, my aunt, and my mom all have breast cancer, and I've been denied every single year. And I was the one who actually ended up finding my breast cancer at age 42, which was stage 3 triple negative, the most aggressive form of breast cancer.
Other provinces obviously have already shifted this change. I know our news department's reaching out to the Cancer Society, and they've been looking at this as well across the country. Part of the challenge, and what the health minister has said yesterday, is that they have to address capacity issues first. So, what's your response to that?
I understand. I mean, obviously, yes, we do need to probably address that, but I still believe that we should be early detection with women. If we start early enough, we can save women's lives. I understand, yes, there is a capacity issue, but there is also women's health, early screening, and early detection that could help these women save lives.
When you said you found your cancer yourself, was it an obvious lump? And how long between when you found that and when you went in to actually get the mammogram?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually was training for my 8th Manitoba Marathon here in Winnipeg, and I was training for the marathon, and I actually did not find a lump. A lot of women and people assume the assumption is that you're going to find a lump. I found it an inverted nipple. I thought that looked abnormal to me in my breasts. I contacted my family doctor on a Thursday. On a Tuesday, I had my first mammogram ever at age 42. And then from there, the mammogram text said, if we see something uncharacteristic, you would instantly go for an ultrasound, which I did. And by 5 p.m., I was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer.
What went through your mind when you got that official diagnosis?
I was angry. I was frustrated. I was upset at our health system here in Manitoba that I have been denied and begging for it, and that Manitoba and Quebec are the only provinces in Canada that are denying this early screening for women for 40 to 49. I think it's reckless for women's health that we're not taking this more seriously.
Just to your own health, Shannon, how are you doing? I mentioned you're 6 months into your post-chemo right now.
I am doing good so far. Just had another surgery about 2 months ago. But yeah, so far my quality of life is actually doing pretty good. So I hope that it continues that way.
What would I guess success in terms of what you're asking for look like to you? That this would immediately be instituted, or if the province comes up with some type of a plan to make this happen in Manitoba, like what are you hoping you'll hear from the health minister next?
So for me, unfortunately, I will never have a mammogram again because I had a double mastectomy with reconstruction from my stomach. With that being said, I would want it immediately. I am fighting for women, for young children, that they get the proper screening. The women aged 40 to 49 in Manitoba can't self-refer for screening of mammograms. Women with dense breasts can't access additional breast cancer screening. So I am fighting for them. I would love this to happen immediate. I don't know why there's such pushback. Only Manitoba and Quebec are the only provinces who are denying this as we speak.
Thank you for your time this morning and for sharing your story.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a wonderful day.
Take care.
Thank you.
Shannon Coates, who was diagnosed with breast cancer at the age of 42, now 6 months post-chemo, as you heard. If you want to read more about the province, saying they're now taking a cautious approach to lowering the breast cancer screening age, and they need to look into addressing capacity issues in the system first, you can go to our website at cbc.ca for the story, cbc.ca/Manitoba. Well, I want to mention here the call-in question. Usually Janet pops in, and we just sort of run out of time here. But I get to tell you about the call-in. So on noon, between 12:30 and 1, the call-in conversation today, and you can call live then or leave a message now, is right on topic. What do you love about gardening? What are your favorite plants to grow? What questions do you have? The guest to answer those questions is a 20-year member of the Selkirk and District Horticultural Society. So you'll be in good hands with Janet and the guest. That's between 12:30 and 1 in the call-in conversation, and you can leave a message now if you can't make it over lunch hour, 788-3727.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, we've got a mix of sun and clouds out there. It's 18 degrees in Winnipeg and windy, the wind gusting to 55 right now. That wind is going to pick up even stronger, and a good chance we'll see some showers today, a high of 21. A Winnipeg mother whose 9-year-old daughter got a sexually explicit email from boys in her grade is not satisfied with how her school handled the situation. She accuses administrators of downplaying and hiding what happened. Now, CBC is not naming the daughter, the mother, or the school to protect the child's identity. In March, the mother was told the email was about the boys wanting to kiss the girl. She later learned it included comments about her specific private body parts. The mother says the principal also told her the boys had apologized to her daughter in an in-person meeting.
While she is strong and she will have a lot of support through her life, in that moment that this happened, she lost power. As a 9-year-old, she was taught to be a good little girl and do what people told her to do. In a moment, to accept apologies from boys who had harassed her instead of being able to say no.
The mother says she has been pushing the Seven Oaks School Division for accountability and change. She wants the division to establish a sexual harassment policy and a process for steps to follow in the future. The division superintendent, Tony Kreml, declined CBC's request for an interview. In a statement, though, he says staff work every day to build respectful and safe classrooms and schools. You can read more on this story at cbc.ca/Manitoba. A chef who pleaded guilty to deliberately torching a hotel in an eastern Manitoba town has been sentenced to 2 years for arson. Court heard Pele Lambiase deliberately set the Rennie Hotel fire with lighter fluid and a barbecue lighter, seeking revenge on the new owners of that hotel. The 65-year-old previously pleaded guilty after police showed him the surveillance video. Court heard he was angry at the new owners for an argument and physical altercation with his friend who owned the neighboring restaurant where he worked as a chef. A new transitional housing facility just opened in Brandon to help keep Indigenous women safe. Danette Hanmore is the first woman to move into Chelsea's house. It is named after her relative, Chelsea Cote, who died in February and was unhoused at the time. The 7-bed supportive housing unit is staffed around the clock, and Hanmore says it will take the community working together to keep people safe.
It should be for anybody in the community that, just wants to get a safe place to rest and, to eat. Food brings people together, place to listen to music, whatever, just chill out and relax, just a lot of, that's hard to do anywhere around here.
Brandon's Homelessness Individuals Families Information System database says since 2020, at least 12 Indigenous women utilizing homelessness resources have died in Brandon. The bomb unit had to be called out to a home in Transcona after someone found a live grenade in their garage. Police say the call came in Tuesday over the noon hour as the person found it while cleaning out the garage. The Winnipeg Police Bomb Unit, along with help from the Canadian Armed Forces ammunition technicians, safely removed the live grenade. Police say the origin of the grenade is not known and it wasn't believed to have been stored with criminal intent. Manitoba dog owners might have a harder time taking their furry friends across the border this summer. Among new rules kicking in this August is providing a form certifying rabies vaccination signed by a vet within 30 days of travel time. Local vet Philip Schott says owners should be prepared.
People need to find the websites, the CDC website and CFIA website, and just keep themselves up to date on what actually they need to do and what their responsibility and obligations as pet owners are if they're going to travel with their dogs to the U.S.
Only dogs older than 6 months are allowed to go to the U.S. border under these new rules to enter the U.S., and they also must have microchips. A study finds fewer Canadians say they're interested in buying an electric vehicle compared with last year. The J.D. Power survey shows concerns remain about limited driving ranges, high prices, and a lack of charging stations. 11% of respondents say they are very likely to buy an EV as their next car. That's down 3 percentage points compared to last year. The report says interest in buying an EV was highest in provinces offering incentives, including BC and Quebec. You can find more news updated throughout the day. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thanks for the morning, Heather.
Thank you.
All right, Heather Wells in our news department, along with Alana Cole and Megan Ketcherson. Thank you, guys. Thanks to our team of APs, associate producers, and to our leaders in unit, Ellie Gonzalez and Leif Larson, who's the senior producer of audio at CBC Manitoba. Thanks to our live team here, Brad Lillies and Abby Adiemi, who we're going to hear from in a moment with the forecast. And Corey Funk, thank you.
Thank you.
Last word on the road?
Yeah, Inkster Boulevard, just a heads up. It's actually closed eastbound from Main Street to Sinclair Street until actually late 2024. As well, westbound is just down to one lane as well, also till the end of 2024. So that might throw you off if you go down Inkster often. Other than that, pretty smooth commute overall.
Abby.
A range of weather conditions, mainly sunny, and it's going to be clear for the northern part of the province. And later in the south, the temperatures will be bringing some rain, some cloud cover, and we're expecting thunderstorms to come with that. We're seeing highs between 18 and 24.
It's going to be unsettling out there, unsettled in the weather. Tonight, maybe we'll see you at the Centre Culturel Franco-Manitoban, the Franco-Manitoban Cultural Centre in St. Beith, because I'm hosting the Humankind International Dinner. It's always a really lovely event, so we might be seeing you out there a little bit later. And remember, Pride is on Sunday, so we're also watching the forecast for that. CBC Manitoba, proud sponsor of Pride. Coming up on The Current, what are you wearing to work today? You have your jeans on? You allowed to wear your jeans to work? One of those offices? Well, what do our jeans reveal about us and the generation that we're from? That'll be a fun conversation. Coming up on The Current with Matt Galloway. Stay with us right here on CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or YouTube. Take care, everybody.